He has not looked at it.
He has not looked at it.
Turn my
Casey
music down.
Cannon, comma, check your Facebook Messenger for the link.
Casey Cannon, check your messages. Check your things. Is he still up there or is he back?
No, they're back. They're back. They got back around 3:00 this afternoon. Well, Billy got back at 3:00. I don't know what time Casey got back. I'm assuming Casey's staying at his Florida residence, so I don't know.
Did they fly?
No. So Casey, I don't know if I think Casey drove down to Florida, met up with Hood, and then the two of them met Billy in Orlando. It's kind of like a central point, and then drove north to Tinley.
Caravaned. That's a long drive.
It is. I mean, I do the South Florida to Philadelphia thing. Like I was doing that at least once a year, if not twice a year, for like a decade, and that's even farther. So like Tinley's even farther. So
yeah, it's wild.
It's wild.
Well, this is episode 138 of Snakes and Stogies. It's brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram, BlackBoxCages.com.
BlackBoxCages.com.
You wanna order a cage. Say you want to order a cage. Say you place an order. Maybe a month passes by, 2 months, 3 months. The next Olympics are here. You still haven't heard about your order, where it's at. It's because you didn't order with BlackBox. Because if you order with BlackBox and you message us and you ask a question, hell of a concept, they reply. Sometimes it's even me. Most of the time it's Jen. You get an answer. Where's your order? Here's where it's at. Here's where we're working. We'll let you know when it's shipped.
Yeah.
Try to contain the mental explosion that just happened.
I know, right? And then your package, it's going to fly across the country, wherever you may be.
In one piece.
In one piece. And
not like as in assembled, but in one piece, as in FedEx didn't just like jump it like it's getting jumped into a gang. Like
right. And you're going to get that package and you're going to open it and you're going to see one of the greatest pack jobs.
And what's inside is Casey Cannon. There's a cannon inside.
There's a cannon inside every Casey.
Hey, now I can hear you. Sorry.
Yes. So
we're good. What's going on, guys?
BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out. And then the Puget Sound Pythons, folks, the Pacific Northwest, right over my shoulder here, right here. Look at that. Right there. Yeah. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram as well. I know if you're in their general area up there, it sounds like they had a abundance of rodents that they were looking to part with. Feeders, not live, I don't think. I don't know. But if you're in the Pacific Northwest, hit them up because they may have a sweet deal on some rodents. So anyways, I'm Justin Smith of palmettocoastexotics, and as always, I'm joined by Mr. Phil Wolf on the other side of Casey there. knobtails.ig, and then in the middle there, in the sandwich parked between two beards. Whoops. Here we go. Here's Casey Cannon with that stash coming in. Look at that.
Yeah, I know, right? This is the Tinley haven't shaved in a bit look I got going on right now.
It's the Tinley shadow.
Casey flawless jawline Cannon.
Casey perfect bone structure Cannon.
Yes. Hey, you got a Buc-ee's.
The Buc-ee's shirt.
Love it.
You wore that at Tinley, didn't you? And people were like, what the hell?
I did not wear it at Tinley.
Oh.
What's funny
is, those of you who don't know, I rode with Jason Hood, and Jason Hood may as well be a sales rep for Buc-ee's because he wants to stop at every single one he sees.
Nice.
He likes to spread the good word about the beaver-themed gas station / theme park.
Let me tell you about the Holy Beaver Nuggets. that you can get at Buc-ee's. Spreading the good word about the beaver nuggets.
The nugs. I thought it was funny how Matt and
Eat a whole
Jamie came
bag
up
of
to
those.
Daytona. Matt and Jamie came up to Daytona last minute just to say, hey, let's go for the day, you know? And they're like, you know what? We miss how fun this is. Let's get a room and stay for the night. But they had no clothes. They had no toiletries. They had no nothing. What'd they do? They went to Buc-ee's and they got
You can get
full
everything.
ensemble. They got clothes. They got shoes. They got food. They got a cooler with beer. Who's better than them?
And they filled up their gas tank.
And they filled it
And
with
when you've really made it, we've decided this. You know you've made it when you get one of the Buc-ee's crystallized bull skulls and you can mount it on the hood of your car. That's when you really made it in the reptile world. I think it's a must-have.
it
It's a
is.
crystallized bull skull to bolt on the front of your Lamborghini.
It won't be obvious when I've made it as a reptile breeder, but there will be signs.
Oh, I love it.
You need to wear your shades when you look at the hood of my car.
Oh, it'll get you.
Like staring at the sun.
It'll get you.
What are you smoking tonight, Phil?
So
know
I got
you started early.
Yeah, I did. I started on my way home from work. I was gonna smoke on my way to work, and I was like, I'll have a nice morning smoke, and I forgot about it and sat in my car all day. And it's a Oliva Torpedo, and I don't remember exactly which one it is.
Series G.
Sure, it's like a Toro size torpedo.
It's a Series G, I think.
Okay, and I got about a third into it, and I was like, what am I doing? I gotta save this for when we're on air. And I got a number 9 as backup, so we're good.
I am smoking Blackbird Cigar Company Unkind.
You were into those Blackbirds, man.
Dude, this Unkind legitimately is one of the most unique cigars on the market right now, flavor wise. Like the blend is really, really bizarre. It's from like 3 or 4 different countries that you don't typically see some cigar tobacco from.
Do you remember?
And it's just really different. I don't. I'll have to look it up.
Ah, okay.
But it's an odd blend because you see it and you're like, that's different. So
yeah.
Yeah, I have that, and then I have a Romacraft Cro-Magnon Corona on
A staple.
standby. That's right.
Nice. And Mr. Cannon, what adult vice are you partaking in this evening?
Literally none, because I was in Tinley all weekend
He's
and
recovering still.
I'm recovering. I'm running on the strong hallucinogen of very strong lack of sleep.
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a Brazilian wrapper, Dominican binder. Filler is a Nicaraguan Corojo, Nicaraguan Criollo 98, and Pennsylvania, what I assume is broadleaf. So just a very eclectic blend.
It is very eclectic.
So, well, you're alive, so you
made
survived.
We're all alive. We are.
Yeah. For those of you who are wondering what we're talking about, Casey Cannon, Billy Hunt, and Jason Hood carpooled up to the Tinley Reptile Show, and I felt obligated. Let's be real here. I had FOMO like a son of a bitch, and I was at work Saturday, and I was like, man, I never really cared about Tinley, and now like everyone I know is going, and I'm not. And I FaceTimed Casey, and he showed me the goods.
I did. We had a really sweet table set up, didn't we?
It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. So we had to have Casey come on tonight and tell us.
I'm also the only one of the group who is still awake, partially because I had to drive like 10 hours less than the other 2 guys. But
That's
yeah, Sunday night, loaded the car up. So 5:30 Chicago time, we hit the road. We got to Georgia, dropped me off at like 4:45, and I think they drove until like 2:00 in the afternoon. Yeah, they went the whole 21 plus hours, however long it takes to get from the Windy City to Orlando.
Wow, that's wild, man.
Yeah,
that's
so
wild.
Props to them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I called Billy and I was like, "Hey, man." He's like, "Hey, what's up, bro?" And I said, "You coming on Snakes and Stogies tonight? Gonna give us a Tinley recap?" He goes, "Man, I just woke up and I gotta put all these snakes away. I gotta pass." I was like, all right, a justifiable excuse.
Yes.
Welcome, criminal crusties.
Yeah,
Hi from
criminal
Virginia.
Crusties.
We'll try and stay as long as work permits.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a long drive, man. I know Jake, when he went to like Northeast Carpet Fest, even that wasn't even anywhere near as long as that.
Yeah.
Just
well,
crazy.
I think what also screws you up is, so I was saying earlier how I used to drive from South Florida to Philly, and depending on the time of year, I would try and choreograph it to avoid the major rush hours, right? So like you're gonna have a rush hour at Jacksonville, you're gonna have a rush hour at like Richmond, you're gonna have a rush hour at DC, you're gonna
trying
have a
to
rush
miss
hour.
all the rush hours in the major markets.
And it's just impossible. It's unless you were leaving your house at like 2 a.m, it is almost impossible to leave from like Central Florida to Atlanta and not hit traffic. It's so hard to miss because the traffic is so bad that part.
Well, what I would do is I figured out that when I was younger, I had better, mental stamina, and I would leave at like 6 p.m. and drive through the night. And that would put me in Philly at like 7-ish in the morning. And it was just smooth sailing because you're past all the traffic. Right. But in my older age, I realize I can't do that because I get sleepy at like 3 a.m. And because I've been up the whole day.
Is you're fine for the first like 4 hours, and then it slowly like just starts.
Well, and that's what I realized is if I'm going to do that, I have to wake up at like 6 a.m., stay up till like noon, power nap until like 4 or 5, and then leave. At least that's how I would choreograph it.
Which, of course, your circadian rhythm at that point is like, what the hell are you doing to me?
Yeah, exactly.
What's happening?
Yeah.
Oh.
Look at that.
He fell asleep right now.
But yeah, no, as far as the show went, Billy and I both agreed we had the best money-wise show we've ever had. I don't know what the total is, but I made between $3,500 and $4,000, and I think Billy's somewhere around in there too. Awesome. Jason said he didn't have the best show ever, but the man's got black-headed pythons. After a few weeks from now, when people try to hit him up, yeah, then he'll do well. He's always said that's kind of what the shows are like for him, is they're just advertising for online sales.
The only reason Phil made it was Newports and Smooth Jazz.
Oh, we lost Phil.
There he goes. Yeah, I mean, in comparison to Daytona, I know it's kind of apples to oranges, but you vended Daytona too, and
yes,
sounds like it was night and day.
Yeah, Daytona was not a good sales show. Daytona's always been the chilled out party show where everybody goes to hang out, and there's the beach outside. Everybody goes to hang out after the show, and it's great. Tinley is a work weekend for us. Some of the Northeast guys will say it's the exact opposite, but they're wrong. Like Tinley for us is like very little sleep. It's a true 3-day show too. Like we set up at 12 o'clock and we sat at our table like we were vending until about 7:30 that night on Friday. Made pretty good sales on Friday too. And then Saturday, so I don't know why the reptile world has decided in the last 2 years that we weren't doing it the right way before. And we have to incorporate VIP and stuff like that because, Daytona was completely mismanaged as far as the opening show, and Tinley went the opposite way where they said VIP are allowed to come in at 7:30 in the morning. So the vendors need to be coming in at 7:30 in the morning on Saturday. So
it seems excessive.
Yeah, it was a bit excessive. So, Billy and Jason got down there early. I didn't come in until about 8:15, but we stood the entire time from 7:30, 8:15 up until about 6 o'clock in the afternoon on the evening. Made decent sales. Better, honestly, it was for us, we had better sales on Friday and on Sunday. They really started coming in on Sunday.
Interesting. Forgive me if I missed it with my bad connection, but you guys were looking at I guess they had auction tickets.
We didn't actually go to the auction. Like,
Yeah.
we kind of popped in like the very end of it. The Jason Hood's friends with some of the crested gecko people, and apparently like the crested gecko people like run the show at Tinley.
Really?
Right? They got their own like big club. So we went out to a Chicago style pizza place with them on Saturday night, and on Friday night we went with them to a hibachi place.
Nice.
So we were kind of like the lone little like corner of snake guys, and with the crested gecko people who are like, oh, we only made like 11 grand this weekend. Poor us.
Yeah, right. Right.
Oh,
I
no.
just thought it was interesting how, Daytona, it's all for US ARC, right? And the auction.
There's a couple different things it's for in Tinley Park. There's a Tel Hicks auction, which is an artist who got paralyzed.
Right.
Then they do US ARC, and then they do something else. They split into 3 groups, but the majority of the money goes to US ARC.
But I just found it interesting that it's a charity event for our community, and they were charging admission to it. And I felt like that's a real quick way to have people not show up.
I mean, frankly,
so you got a free ticket if you donated an item. You got like 2 or 3 free tickets, so that would cover most of the tables. And then it was like $10 a ticket to get in for anybody who didn't donate something.
Too, or do they do like, is it like Daytona where they have the live auction and then like a silent auction?
They do. Like I said, we were out at the pizza place during all that. Like, we kind of popped in the very last 3 items for the live auction, so I didn't really see anything of it.
Okay.
But
I don't know. I mean, I don't like to be that guy, but the Daytona auction, I'm just like, I really don't care about it. Like, I have no desire, especially it sounds like this year it was horrible because like the AC wasn't working or something.
Oh yeah. It was atrocious.
And it's like, I don't want to sit there and watch people bid on stuff. Like, honestly,
it's not exciting for me either. I mean,
it does nothing for me.
I bet a few things on the silent auction, but I agree 100%. Like, it's just not my thing. And I don't know, maybe it's because we're not like the high rollers who are like trying to get everybody to clap for them when they spend $7 grand on a painting, but I don't know.
Yeah,
better $7 grand on a painting than like Jello shots or something stupid.
I don't know. I get the whole point of everyone trying to outcompete each other because it is for a good cause. It's just, it very quickly becomes a what's the word I'm looking for? And I'm trying not to be offensive. It turns into like a dick swinging contest.
Yes.
100%. And it's like, okay, oh really? You spent $5 grand on those coasters? Well, this napkin holder, 10 grand. What are you going to say about that? And it's like, that's not what this should really be about. Like, I commend you for the tax write-off that you've just donated, but I tell you, man, I have way more fun walking around with friends looking at the silent auction, and you find something that you didn't think you liked. And obviously everyone's going to pay a little bit more because it is going for charity, but that's the fun of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the silent auction is a lot of fun. Now, Tinley used to have some crazy like gecko symposiums and stuff. Do they still have that stuff?
I didn't hear about any kind of talks or anything like that, but then again, we may just not have been in the loop for that. This time it was a lot more YouTube influencer stuff going on this show.
Interesting.
So the big thing at all of them is Emily and Ed, right? Snake Discovery.
Yeah.
They call in their people and they say, okay, if you're wearing, last year it was onesies, so you had a bunch of people wearing like, Lilo and Stitch onesies, teddy bear onesies, like stuff like that. So you'd see people and you're like, what the heck's going on? This year they were doing Where's Waldo? So the first time I walked in there, I was like, oh, there's somebody dressed as Waldo. That's hilarious. And then I see, and there's like 30 more, and I'm like, oh, that's what's going on. Okay. I was going to give you props because I thought you were original, but they're trying to get a sticker from Emily, which more power to her, honestly.
Whatever works.
They probably made more money than any of us at that show.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Kaufman was walking around. Barcheck showed up for a little bit. Just like all the Pet Tuber people were there at some point. Which that seemed to be more of a thing than like any like symposium talks or anything.
Yeah.
Criminal Cresties brings up a good point. I feel like the shows are becoming more about who you know versus what you know. Education is taking a backseat to clout.
That's a good point.
No
It's a very good
disagreement
point.
here.
Yep.
That's, I mean, prime example. Like when me and Chris were walking around Daytona, you know, we were talking to all the older guys there, and like the knowledge and stuff they had was like infinite. But those are the guys unless you've been around for a long time, you wouldn't be able to pick them out of a crowd. But I love that.
I had a pretty good long conversation with Ron St. Pierre that time too. And in my mind, Ron St. Pierre is like, you know, top 3 best reptile breeders of all time in my mind. Like the accomplishments that guy's done and the innovations that guy's done with the outdoor stuff, he's
Incredible.
up there to me, you know, and
Oh,
from where I'm standing, you know. And he's a really cool guy, and he's somebody that you can walk up to that table because no one really knows who he is, other than the old school people.
Yeah, the diehards, you know. So, did Casey Cannon make any pickups?
I really tried not to, actually. Billy Hunt was going through. He picked up a lot of different beauty snake projects. He did a bunch of calico stuff. I think he picked up a like a T+ albino, some kind of beauty snake, something like that. They were really pretty looking.
Nice.
We did pick up some ball python stuff between the two of us to like we'll decide if we want to wholesale or we want to keep. You know, we've got a guy who's like been really, really gracious to us for that kind of stuff. So I don't even know if I'd really count that as a pickup because, you know, we may keep like one of them. But yeah, no, I really made it a point. I feel like I've been going really, really hard in the buying department the last like 2 years, and I'm kind of starting to slow down a little bit because honestly, like I've got a lot of projects where I've got a lot of fat to trim, and I'm kind of happy where I'm at right now, and I'm running out of space.
It's a hell of a segue for what Justin and I want to talk about tonight. That's a hell
almost
of a segue.
like he knew.
It's almost like he knew.
I didn't know. So what are we talking about here?
Justin, take it away, brother.
So there was a conversation in the group chat this morning where I don't remember who asked it, but basically someone asked the gang if they were going to be cutting back on pairings next year. Or someone had mentioned that someone else they had talked to outside of the group was selling corns wholesale, and they were selling them for $10 where they normally would have sold them for $40 because there's just so much out there right now. And so that kind of got a little brief conversation going, but it had me thinking because I know Chris mentioned he's not planning on breeding as much next year. I think JT said he's not planning on breeding as much next year. I'm still not exactly sure what I'm going to do. I need to sit down and sort of plan out my pairings and stuff anyways, but there's more than enough time to do that between now and Valentine's Day. So it was me and Phil talked a little bit before we started, you know, before you came in, because we were like, Casey's actually the perfect person to talk to you about this because Casey you have a much better pulse on the market, you know, vending and all that stuff. You have stuff coming in, you have stuff going out. And so I guess the overall question I had with the whole thing was like, is everyone else going to have that mentality of I need to not produce as much because I still have a bunch of stuff from this year? Sales have definitely slowed down. I think that's just given the current state of the economy. I think with COVID and stuff and everyone being on lockdown and stimulus checks, everyone had nothing but money and nothing to do. And so like, that's when people were buying stuff like crazy, but now we're not seeing that. Now we're kind of seeing the opposite of that, I think, where things are tighter. It's not as bad as it was a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago. But I don't know. I mean, do you think it's going to be a case of people are like, are we going to see a vacuum next year in terms of like nothing being available because everyone cut back on breeding? Or do you think it's going to more or less sort of stay the same?
So possibly. I mean, when I say I need to cut fat, I mean I've got a lot of stuff that I have needed to sell for a while now. You know, like I've got Brettles from 2021 that like I didn't even bother to even try to sell. And right now I'm like, okay, I should probably get on this right now. Like I need to sell a bunch of ball python stuff. I need to get rid of a bunch of rainbow boas. You know, like stuff like that. Basically, I've got a lot of excess stuff that I just didn't put a lot of effort into getting rid of. Personally, I don't plan on really slowing down much of what I produce next year, just because honestly, like I had kind of a crappy year last year. Honestly, I was planning on having the biggest year I've ever had in my life last year, and it just didn't work out like that. But I could definitely see there being a shortage of a lot of stuff because people do seem to be kind of slowing down. I don't think me, Billy, or Jason were. We didn't talk about that at all. But we all kind of have to remember too, there's a lot of factors. And honestly, the stimulus check was a really big part of that. Where, you know, a lot of like lower and middle class people suddenly have room to burn, and that's kind of the lifeblood of the reptile world.
Right.
But you know, with some of that stuff slowing down a little bit, I could definitely see sales taking longer to take off. Okay, talk to me after the show because I have hypos that from 2021 that need to go.
Well, I think.
But
go on, Casey. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say there's a lot of factors and all this stuff too we're not talking about, like the explosion of the colubrid
Took the words out of my mouth.
It happened because the Asian market opened up. And right now, the Asian market is starting to transition where all these... Okay, right? What happened when I first got in, corn snakes were $15 a piece.
Yeah.
Then the Asian markets opened up. China, Hong Kong, Japan, some of the Southeast Asian countries, Malaysia, Indonesia. They were like, okay, we want some of these really basic animals. They're easy to take care of, but to us, they're very exotic. So Cali Kings, corn snakes, all the North American Pituophis stuff. And now what happened was the Americans who were selling them for $15 a piece were suddenly getting offers from Asia saying, hey, we'll buy them for 40. So all that stuff went to Asia, and it became hard to get colubrids. And then supply and demand took over, where all of a sudden there's a whole new floodgate of demand and the same amount of supply. And that's why corn snakes went from $15 to $150 in the last like 4 years. And people don't really understand that that's what happened. That, and on top of the fact that Gen Z seems to be very much going towards the colubrid side as far as the snake. You know, the generation younger than me, younger than you guys, like that seems to be where they go, is to colubrids.
Yeah.
Versus ball pythons. So what's happening now is Asia, the animals that got sent over 3-4 years ago, a lot of them ended up going to what Jason called breeding factories, which they're literal, you know, they had the king rat facilities, and we're going to have Cali Kings in there instead of king rats. And they're starting to produce them, and they can produce rodents way cheaper than we ever can. So I think you're going to see a real crash in the price of colubrids pretty soon as you know, Asia starts producing stuff on the level that they are capable and are going to be capable of producing from now on. Yeah.
And Mike Kosicki says, you know, Mexican Black Kings, $35 again next year. Haha. And that could very well be true. And I love that he picked up the Mexican Black Kings, because for the longest time, you know, colubrids had their heyday. And then the people that wanted them still were colubrid people. That's really all they did. And then I remember, what was it, 2018, I think, maybe Daytona 2018, like that summer, colubrid prices were skyrocketing because, and I don't know if it had something to do with the Asian market or not, but from what I was seeing and some of my other friends that are kind of out of the hobby, but they still keep, you know, they keep a finger in there, so to speak. They dip a toe in from time to time. They were noticing that everyone had Mexican Black Kings, and we'll use them for an example. And it was like, oh, it's Mexican Black. I don't need to breed mine this year. Plenty of people are making them. And then no one made them, and no one made them, and no one made them. And then everyone's like, man, I really want one. I can't find it. And
see, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
And then we're going to see next year with a lot of stuff is they're going to be all of a sudden this vacuum effect where it's like everything.
Yeah, but I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, in my personal opinion, you're going to see a lull in 2023, not desolate, but a lull, a dell, if you will, because people bred a lot of crap this year in anticipations of the Asian market and people being bored during COVID and having aspirations of expanding their collections during COVID and whatnot. And then you got a lot of people right now, they're like, man, I made a lot of snakes last year. Let me give my girls a year off, or let me give myself a year off, whatever. And there's people that are still going to be breeding. So if you have 10 people breeding Mexican Black Kings and 7 of them take a year off, that's okay, because the people that still want Mexican Black Kings, they can buy them from those other 3 or 4 people, whatever it is. And then everyone's like, oh, well, where'd you get yours? Oh, I got it from, Casey. And oh, well, he doesn't have any more, but he's going to do it again next year. And then next year, even more people will. So I feel like the days of it just dive bombing and plateauing low may not be the case. That it may just be like a
not
peaks
as
and valleys.
extreme.
Yeah, not as extreme. Yeah. That's my
But I do also see the price of stuff starting to raise because, when COVID hit and the stimulus checks happened, breeders started to realize that, hey, people are willing to spend a lot more if I just wait like an extra month. I got in some arguments with some guys saying like, oh, it's just so overpriced now. I can't believe these people are overpricing stuff. And it's like, well, it's selling. And that's because everything's going to start going up in price. And you're starting to see it now too with like food prices on rodents and rodents in general, the price skyrocketing.
Shipping.
Why wouldn't you charge more? Yeah. Shipping, everything's more expensive now. And I mean, there's so many factors in that, but I think a big thing of what happened in the last couple of years is breeders realized that I am going to try to charge more for some of my stuff and people will still buy it. And I don't know if that's going to continue, but that was definitely a trend in the last like 2.5 years.
Yeah, but see, there's a difference between someone having a 20 or 30% markup because they are who they are and they are proud of their production, right?
There's Brettles, but there's not Casey Cannon Brettles,
right? And yeah, let's use Brettles as an example. Casey, what's the going rate for a normal Brettles right now? Baby,
I'd probably charge like $250.
Yeah, okay.
Depending on what it is.
Kind of where they've been though.
Okay, so now let's say I go to a place like, we'll just say Underground, because everyone knows Underground, right? Underground, and this is not the case, this is completely hypothetical. Let's pretend that I breed Brettles and I got 2 clutches and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to deal with Morph Market. I don't want to deal with online and talking to people. I'll just wholesale them to Underground. Underground's going to pay me $50 a piece. They're going to sell them for $150. Now someone's going to go and look at that and they're going to go, oh man, a Brettles for $150? Hell yeah, I'll buy it. And then they get their pet and they're happy. And there's other people that go, man, that's a great price, but I'm going to wait and I'll buy Casey Cannons for $250 because I know Casey's a Brettles specialist and his bloodlines are fantastic and he's been doing it for a long time and I want to support small business, blah, 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 right? Now, if all of a sudden everyone says, well, Casey's selling them for $250, I'm going to make it $250. And across the board, they're $250. Doesn't matter where it's from. Well, now you have the true market value. And that's where it's going to stay. And it's not until people are completely fed up that it's ever going to drop. And then the question is, will it ever drop back to $50 or $100 or $150? Or will it just go to $225 or $200? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good point. But and Brettles are a weird example where Brettles prices have always been all over the place.
Sure.
I mean, I saw Brettles for $50 like retail price a couple times on Fauna where you had guys just like, $50, that's what I'm going to sell them for. And I'll be honest, like $250 may even be low. I could easily see putting on a $330, $350 price tag on a female, maybe even $400. I don't know.
Right, but now you're talking about and I'm not trying to discredit you in any way. I'm your biggest fan, but you're talking about the Casey Cannon line of animals opposed to the market price. But I really do think that whole market concept is very, very prevalent, especially with, like we were talking about, colubrids, where at one point Mexican Black Kings were $35 snakes. Now they're a minimum of 180, 200, whatever it is. And I noticed this with the imports. where, you know, Henry and I look at an import list, and these are wild caught animals or quote unquote farm bred babies or farm produced babies. Snakes that were $20, now they're 200. And we've said that the majority of it is because the host countries, the host localities that typically are what we would, you know, reluctantly call third world, they now have the same internet, they have 5G, they have all the same stuff we do, and they're seeing what we're selling it for, and they're saying, well, I want $200 for my snake. If the Americans or the Germans or the Canadians are going to sell it for $250 US, I'm going to sell it for $250 US, not comprehending that trickle effect or that market value pricing, right? So now the wholesalers or the importers, they're going to say, I can't buy that for 250 or 200. I can't sell it. No one's going to buy it. I'm going to have to sell it for 600 or 500 or whatever the markup is. So now you have nobody bringing them in, and now you're going back to the specialist who has them, the very niche breeder who's breeding a select group of animals, and now he or she can really set a captive market price, in which case it's probably going to be heavily inflated because commodity, supply and demand.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're especially for something that's very narrow in number of people working with them, like Jansenii, good example. I think I know one person that's produced Jansenii, and that's Daniel at Daniel Snakes. I would fully expect those babies to be damn near $1,000 a piece. Knowing what I know about Jansenii and with mine, it's like, yeah, I could go find one at any of the importers and buy an adult for $600, $500, whatever, and know that it's going to be a struggle and know that I'm going to have a hard time getting it established, likely, especially an adult. Or, you know, you pay a premium for it's same with chondros. Like you're not paying all that money for the snake necessarily. You're paying for the work that went into making sure that animal is 100% rock solid. You're not going to have any issues with it.
Right.
But even that, I mean,
yeah, go on, Casey.
Kind of what Phil was saying, but the import stuff. I mean, the days of you being able to buy a wholesale lot of baby green tree pythons for $50 to $75 a piece, that's never coming back.
Yeah.
You know, Billy and I talked about that before COVID stuff happened. We were like, oh man, when it's coming up, we need to get a group of Arus and just, you know, we'll throw the money in and we'll raise up whatever. If something dies, it dies, which it sucks for imports, being the reality of that. But we really talked hard about that, buying like a group of 25 and splitting them between us and just seeing like what we could raise to adulthood and building a group based off that. But we missed that boat. And that's, you know, the days of $75 baby chondros is never going to happen again.
Yeah. And dude, I went through that with IJ. Like I had a friend who was bringing in a shipment, and there was going to be like 15 wild caught IJs, straight up wild caught, all under like 2.5 foot. And they were supposed to be $75 each. And I was like, I'll take them all. And all of a sudden he gets the email saying, hey, we're ready to ship. Freight's going to be this much. Everything else is going to be this much. And when you add it all together, you're like, no, that's not $75 a snake. That's $275 a snake. And granted, that's still cheap for an amazing animal. But when you're buying 20 of them, the shit adds up real quick. So clearly I did not go with that project because we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
You know? Yep. It's just not logical. So,
and then I don't know, it's so hard where at the end of the day, the market's not real. Like it's the set price. Like there is no it's not like housing where you can have like a professional appraiser come in and say, hey, this is what it's worth. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe with people getting more market savvy. I mean, I'm talking to Kabilka about some of his projects and stuff like that. It's kind of amazing for him to hear where he, instead of thinking about like biology the way some old school snake guys, he's thinking more of influencing marketing and stuff like that. And you very quickly realize that maybe a lot of these like price crash stuff that we've seen traditionally has just been the fact reptile guys don't really understand business or economics like we think we do. Because you look at like the most expensive import snakes, Bolin's pythons, would be like middle to low end range of the high end birds, right?
Right.
Like the bird hobby, it's insane compared to the reptile hobby as far as what prices are.
Light years ahead of us in all aspects. Yeah,
because like a $10,000 import Bolin's python is ridiculous to us, and I will still stand by the fact that's ridiculous.
Right.
But that's chump change compared to like some of the
50,
Indonesian
60,
cockatoos.
$80,000 bird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not to mention that the same money that's going to and fro in the bird community, their husbandry and their science is light years ahead of us in terms of mapping genomes and tracing lineage and just all of it, man. And just they're not writing, Punnett squares on a cocktail napkin like a lot of herpers are. They have legitimate scientists mapping out entire DNA strands of these birds to see what's going to do what in terms of pairing and lineage. It's honestly, it's almost as good, if not better, than the horse industry. These crazy Arabian horses that go for 2.6 million.
And that's kind of a fun way to bring in this next conversation. We talked a lot to Sean Christensen and Ben Morrill about the genetics projects they're doing and some of the problems they're having, which, trust me, that's going to go away the second they roll this thing out. You've got people who are like, I don't trust your science with this. I don't trust the genetic testing. I don't trust your DNA sexing because it's just so new. Like, I don't see how you can trust it. It's like, you realize bird people have been doing this since like the 90s and it's just now hitting the reptile world. You realize like horse people have known where certain genes are for decades, like 40 years.
No, or longer, dude. There's some
longer
European and European and Arabian Peninsula line bred horses that go back 300 years. They have the old books from the 1600s of these horse lines and like written in Sanskrit and Arabic.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I was looking at the with what they're doing, there is a new program, Clutch, that like just got rolled out, and to the reptile people it's like, oh my god, this is so advanced. We can track pairings and all the future possible offspring and family trees and the ball python stuff, which first of all, it's just coming in the ball python now because that's where all the money is in the reptile world, but it's going to be for green trees and carpets and North American colubrid stuff, in 2 years. But, these, what we would consider to be like cutting edge advanced technologies, it's 20 years behind what the bird guys and especially livestock people are doing. I mean, we've known the exact location of like 40 different forms of albinism in cattle for like since like 2002 or something like way early on.
Yeah, but that's some of that I assume is more out of necessity than anything else because we have to make sure that the animals we're raising to eat are healthy.
Yeah, but it's like I said, it's literally money. It's all about the money. You know what I mean?
It's money, but it's also like we're just now like we're almost like an uncontacted tribe that like just figured out how to like make metal arrowheads. And there's guys that are like, putting satellites up in space now, and we think we're so, exactly. We think we're so advanced because we've gone into the Iron Age, but there's people making silicon spaceships.
Yeah. We're the ones shooting the bronze tipped arrows at the biplane flying over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So earlier, Criminal Cresties asked, how do you combat low prices people are flooding the market with? And that it just always kind of makes me giggle because when I was dealing with cresteds, you'd hear in the groups and stuff, people would be like, oh, you shouldn't breed because the market's flooded right now. And it's like, but it's not flooded enough for you to keep breeding. It ain't stopping you from breeding, but you're going to tell everyone else the market's flooded, you shouldn't breed. And I never had an issue selling cresteds at all. So I think depending on the species you're in, I don't think that's even necessarily a concern. I think if the market were that bad, no one would be breeding anything. You wouldn't see people breeding ball pythons. You wouldn't see people breeding corns. You wouldn't see people breeding cresteds.
Yeah, I almost want to say that's not really a thing. I do think you could probably produce I don't know. If you produce 30 clutches of normal ball pythons, you probably have a really hard time moving them. But I also see some of the market crashing happening way more in things that are expensive. And it's just...
That's new. Yeah, the latest and greatest.
If something's new, like, okay, Bolin's pythons are $10,000, which I have a lot of problems with. But if all of a sudden 15 guys got clutches of 15 babies, that's not a sustainable price at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not. And the price would probably go down to like 2,500 real quick. But it's a supply and demand thing.
Well, it's
But I
going to
say
happen
that,
no
and
matter what.
emerald basins probably get produced on a pretty regular, group, and they're still $7,000 for an emerald basin.
Those I think are a little different, just because there's so much. There's a lot more involved in that.
Yeah, I mean, there's
things like the markets that are already flooded.
Yeah.
You talk to people that breed balls, and because I always thought something similar, where it's like, how do people even sell ball pythons anymore? Like, there's so many people breeding them. Same with cresteds. There's so many people breeding them. There's so many people doing stuff with them. You would think at some point they would run out of people to sell stuff to. But you ask the ball python people that are doing, they're like, I know, like, everything's flying.
Yeah, I couldn't produce enough.
Yeah.
And especially now where it is getting easier, especially with things like crested geckos, which, as far as I know, are not a CITES species. You don't just have the American market if you have something that's non-CITES. And if it's a common CITES species like ball pythons, it's not that hard to get them across national borders, and that just opens up your market even more.
Yeah.
Like, I know Chris has talked about how a lot of his baby crested geckos went to Korea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't, the whole flooded market thing, especially with species that are like the most popular species of all time, it's like, I don't think you can truly flood that market. Like, it's, the popularity is way bigger than maybe we think it is. Like, we can fathom.
I feel like he had something important to say. Phil froze. I do feel like, though, that there are some exceptions that prove the rule as far as market, which I will still stand by the fact that any price tag in the reptile world is fake, with no basis in reality other than just what people want to pay. There's no such thing as something overpriced or underpriced. It's just not a real thing. But there are definitely a small pocket of species where they don't follow the general trends of the other groups, right?
I think things can totally
Black-headed pythons don't. Basins don't. A couple of large species of monitor lizards don't. You got a few species like that just they kind of just have a stable high price. But I mean, I think some of the mid-level stuff, you maybe could flood the market too much because not enough people have heard about it. Like, it might be possible to produce too many. Will be a good example. It may be possible to produce. Yeah, it may be possible to produce too many Baird's rats. It may be possible to produce too many Russianburger tree boas. It may be possible to produce too many Woma pythons. I don't know. Maybe it's possible to produce too many Brettles pythons, where you just have not enough people have heard about them, and they're not quite on the mainstream full popularity where, that's a big problem with selling Morelia at reptile expos, is most of the people who come look at your table have never heard of it, and they're like, okay, well, let me research this before I impulse buy, which is a good thing, in my opinion.
Thorn scrubs.
Yeah, you can produce too many thorn scrubs, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can produce too many of really common staple species. And you probably can't produce too many basins to justify the $5,000 plus price tag. But if that ever stopped, I mean, there's going to be people who would buy a basin for $1,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just, you have a few species that just, and if anyone figures out Bolins, they'll probably end up being like that too. Bolins will probably always have a very high price tag, even if they were produced on the level of, say, basins or, species like that, that's produced by a handful of guys every year, but not by everyone.
Yeah. I think things can be overpriced.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Like, I mean, if you go and put a Brettles up,
if I put a Brettles up for $1,000, that's not something crazy.
Like, it's clearly,
it's not going to happen.
Unlikely to sell at that price. So it's like, it does sort of, the market is usually a pretty good indicator in terms of what things should and shouldn't be. Like, that range
Right.
where
And the
they
market
should
does kind of have a clearer ceiling,
fit.
you know, definitely. Like, I'm not going to try to put normal Brettles up for 1,500. It's just,
Right.
it's just never going to happen. You know,
But a
I
high
wish
bow
it would. That'd be
stonewall.
awesome. You know, I'd make a good bit more money if that happened, but it's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's crazy to say like some people will sell them for 50 and some people will sell them for 400 because that's been happening for years. And I can't really explain why that is, why some guys think that they should put them up for 400 or some guys think they should put them up for 50, but both of them sell. So what does that mean? I don't know.
See, there's something to be said though for the opposite end of that, where if I saw a Brettles for $50, I would be raising an eyebrow. Like,
I agree too. Yeah.
what's up with that?
You can definitely produce
Like,
something
I
so
would be-
low that you're like, what disease are you going to give me if I buy these?
I would be doing some second guessing on that, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
You need to be good at marketing and sales too, though, which is also true. I don't know. I not that I do it on purpose, but like Bairds, I think are a good example. Like I've talked about them enough to where I've had people message me about them asking. You know, I didn't do that going, oh, if I talk about these enough, people want to buy them, and I'll have a ton of them to sell. And it's like, no, yeah, they're cool. It's whatever. The amount of work contributes to the price of some of those species, absolutely. Okatee corns, SMR, Abbott pricing versus everyone else. That's another good one. That's a prime example of that, actually. You know, stuff that Lee Abbott produces, his prices are higher than people that are selling the exact same thing 3 tables over. Like part of that is Lee Abbott. Like,
some of it's selective breeding, and then I will also say in the reptile world, we talk a lot about advertising, but I will stand by, and I just thought of this. I will stand by the most important part of advertising in the reptile world is the quality of the picture you use. Where, I mean, you got to get a good camera. And I've been guilty of putting up some pretty crappy pictures and not selling. And then I'll turn around and then, you know, get my real camera out and get some real lighting on it and take a much better picture. And I'm still learning the photography of different species because, you know, a yellow ball python needs a different background than like a growing baby hypobrettles. And then that will need a different picture or need a different lighting than a rainbow boa because of how iridescent they are. So I think a lot of
it's super easy with those because they don't move, but like trying to get pictures of baby corns and stuff is fucking impossible unless you literally like have your camera ready on your phone and you have good lighting and you lift
take like
the hide,
50 pictures in a low.
And then put it back before they take off. Like that happens every time. Like taking pictures of colubers and even the Brettles that I had, dude, taking pictures of those and getting them to sit still long enough.
They'll sit still for a second. And then they won't.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Try photographing something that's fossorial.
Yeah.
Yes.
In substrate.
So that's a big part of it too. Is if you can't take good pictures, it's very, very hard for you to sell stuff.
Lisa said she just bought her first actual camera, and I avoided learning manual mode for the longest time. But if you can like tackle that first, and once you do that, you'll know exactly where everything needs to be, and it's actually you'll get better results than if you do like auto or, you know, any of the other modes. So don't
check to see if it looks good on your phone and on your laptop. And that's a big thing I learned too, because I've got some pictures that when it's this big on my phone, I'm like, oh, this picture looks great. And then I'll go on my laptop and I'm like, oh no, this picture looks
completely out of focus.
Yeah, it's completely out of focus and it's grainy.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not talking like I'm an expert photographer as far as like putting up reptiles for sale, because this is something I've thought about a lot where I've got a lot of room to grow in it. I just do. But I really do believe that taking very high quality pictures of the stuff you have for sale in good light and when it's fired up the right way.
To do it, because that's we get the most interpretation of colors and pattern and stuff. Like I don't care what anybody says. You can have the nicest lights for photography and all this other stuff that you want, but natural light cannot be beat.
It's always the best.
Oh, I believe it. She said, one look at the camera and the white lips go ballistic. The lens freaks them out. Yeah.
The ring pythons were the exact same way.
Because they're possessed by the same demons.
They're possessed by the same demons, and they're iridescent. So you may take like a really good picture where it's in focus, and you're like,
Mhm.
but the back half is so shiny you can't see anything. That sucks.
Yeah, and a lot of it with manual mode too was like just getting a good handle on like aperture and your white balance and stuff like that. Um, like ISO and stuff does matter, but in terms of I think what we're doing, I didn't find ISO to really matter as much because typically if
Mhm.
you have it set at like a normal like mid range, nothing too low, nothing too high, it's pretty much exactly where you needed it to be. But um, yeah, I don't know. I find my phone does the job. It's
And it depends. I
well lit.
I've found with a couple of the ball python stuff I've taken pictures of, my phone takes infinitely better pictures than my like real. I mean, I don't have an expensive camera. I've got like a $400-500 camera, but some stuff the camera takes better pictures of, some stuff the phone takes better pictures of, and you kind of got to be able to figure that out. And
I just like it for the convenience because I just upload those pictures to a folder in my Google Drive. That's
Mhm.
like stuff I have for sale. I take a index card and I cut it up into like small little like 1 inch by ½ inch pieces of paper and write the information of that animal, put it next to the animal, take that picture. That way I know who's who, and then just upload it that way.
yeah, and I've done similar things with just you can on your phone just upload directly to Morph Market. And
They
I do
do
want to
now
ask you
have
this.
an Android They have an Android app now, like a
They
legitimate
do,
app.
they do.
And
I've
I have it, and
looked
it's
at
awesome.
downloading it.
It's
Yeah.
great.
Okay. How do you feel about editing pictures? Because I think there's a very, very fine line between editing pictures to reflect reality and lying. Because I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of breeders where they take a picture with a really good flash and they pretty clearly mess around a little bit with the settings too much, and the snake you receive is not the snake that you saw in the picture.
I think it can all be circumvented if you have your settings right to begin with.
Well, let me put it this way. If someone doesn't have a DSLR and they're using their phone, you can use a simple photo editing app. Now, if the
And I do.
saturation's off
Yeah.
the charts and like the person is, Caucasian, their hands are red,
Yeah.
well, then something's funky. But what I like to do is I don't like saying editing. I mean, it is
Yeah.
editing, but I will.
I mean, you have to crop your pictures. Like,
Well, not even that, but
it's a
tweak it.
requirement as far as I'm concerned.
Sure, but I'll tweak a photo a little bit to reflect what the animal actually looks like.
And
But
I do too. Yeah.
I will do my damnedest to do it while I'm looking at the animal.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So I'm not like in the other room trying to remember, oh, was it that red or was it a little
Yeah,
more
but it
orange?
looks a little bit better when I make it a little bit more red.
Yeah, but that's you gotta be an upstanding person and not do that,
You do. And it is kind of funny though, where you look at the wildlife photographers who specialize in reptiles, they are so guilty of like just exploding the color and the saturation and affecting the shadows and stuff like that. Like I've seen pictures of people taking showing like wild corn snakes. I'm like, there's no way that corn snake actually looked like that. It's a beautiful picture, but that corn snake doesn't look like that.
Yeah. And then let's not even
But then
talk
that's
about photo
different.
stacking.
That's the difference between art and advertising.
Sure.
They're artists. So I feel like that's okay.
Yeah. If you're photo stacking a picture of a snake on a branch and you want to photo stack so you can get the Milky Way in the background, sure, that's art.
Yeah,
But
you're making art. That's fine.
There's no way in hell that you physically could have taken a picture of the snake in lighting and still seen the stars in the background. Like it's physically impossible. So I don't know. I also, when posting stuff for sale online, my biggest thing, and this comes from my own non-reptile business, I want to do everything in my power to not give the customer a reason to contact me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I agree with that 100%.
I want every single identifying mark. If they say, is that a scratch? Is that a scar? Is that a scab? If I see that with my naked eye, I'm getting a picture of it, even if it's blurry. You know what I mean? Because I want people to see, hey, this is what you're getting. This is what it is. No surprises. I don't want someone to message me and say, hey, the face is only showing the left side. Can you get a picture of the right side? Well, they shouldn't have to ask me that. I should have posted a picture of the front, the front, the back, the left, the right, the up, the down, whatever. Cover.
But
all
some
your
of that
bases.
too is. No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
No. I'm saying cover all your bases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that also depends on how experienced the customer is, too. Where I have noticed that the customers who it's their first time spending like over $400 on an animal, they're always going to want a lot of information, and that's fine. You know, it's scary the first time you jump in like
Sure.
that.
Sure.
It's
Absolutely.
terrifying. So I've even gone as far as like they say, "Are you sure it's not kinked?" To
Damn,
to
Skippy.
show a video of it moving. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I'll take a
Yeah.
video to prove to you this thing is capable of moving without having neuro, without having kinks.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with doing that.
I think
Yeah.
there's a line though. Like it does get to a point where it's like, look, I've given you everything you need. You have your pictures. You have your video. Like I can't like. I have no issues. I did it today. Someone messaged me about some of the corns I have on Morph Market, and they were like, "Can you send me some more pictures?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And they were like, "Can you send me pictures of the other two you have for sale?" And I said, "Absolutely." I took like 4 pictures of each snake and sent them like right
Yeah.
there on the spot when I got home from work. Like that's fine, but it's sort of the back and forth of like, well, let me get a picture of the chin from the left side on these 2 animals, and let me see the back of the tail on the third one, and like
Yeah.
there is a line like there.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, I'm a little different than a lot of people where I'm more comfortable with online sales than I am like doing show sales.
Sure.
And I'm okay with. I don't know. I seem to have a lot more tolerance for like bending over backwards for people and then having them just say no or ghost me later on. I don't know. Like just something about hearing what other people's experience with online sales are. I'm just like, well, I don't know. You got to dance for your dinner sometimes.
It has,
you know?
yeah, and
Yeah.
I honestly I have yet to really experience any of that. I've had people ghost me, and I know I've said it on other shows before. Like when someone messages me about an animal, I fully go into it expecting them to not buy.
Yes, that's what you have to do.
And it's
And
like you're selling stuff. Like this is the dance. Like you have to do it to a degree. Like whether like what that degree is, that's up to you. But expect it. Expect people to message you. I had someone who wanted to buy like 2 of the Bairds, the low mounted Bairds, and I was like, "Cool, you want both of them?" Never heard back from them again. They were interested. They wanted them, and I said, "Okay, you want both of them?" Disappeared. So whatever. I expect it. So it's like I don't get upset about it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And then I feel bad too because I've been on the other side of that. In fact, I feel bad because David Camino messaged me, "Hey, you want to buy some Western Blackheads?" And I looked at it during the show, and I never responded. So if you're listening to this, I'm really sorry. I will respond to you tonight because I kind of just remembered it. But I mean, especially when I was first starting out with all this stuff, like I was a pretty pain in the ass customer. Like I wanted a lot of pictures. I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to have a lot of information. I outgrew it because I kind of realized how annoying that was. But like, I can look back at like 18, 19-year-old Casey being like, you wouldn't have been the worst customer, but you would have been an annoying one, you know? And I just got to accept that, like,
you also can't expect someone to just outright buy something sight unseen, you know?
Yes.
Sure. And you know, it's funny you brought up the blackheads. I recently, oh my God, now I can't remember the name. What is it? IQ Exotic in Tampa. Did I say that right?
No, he's up in
Ish?
New York.
No, not Ish. Damn. Now I can't remember. Hey, somebody posted a snake and that I had not seen in a very, very long time. And I inquired as to the locality and the price. And they replied with a photograph that I didn't even ask for. And no price and the locality. And I said, "Hey, thank you very much. You know, I really appreciate you showing me this, blah, 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 blah." And I felt bad. But at the same time, I reminded myself, no, I didn't just ghost them. I didn't give them a three word sentence. You know what I mean? And Joyzy. And I realized that no, I did it right. You know what I mean? Like I made a conversation. I told them, "Hey, this is what I'm looking for. Hey, I appreciate you letting me know. Not for me," and just let it go.
And there's this weird thing now where if you ask about something and it ends up not being what you're wanting or what you thought it was, like you can't just say, "Okay, thanks." Like instead, it has to be, oh, my car has troubles. Oh, let me talk
Yeah.
to my spouse. It's like,
I mean,
you wouldn't just walk into like an auto dealership looking to buy a car, and because you didn't see one you like, be like, well, I have to buy one because I'm here and the sales guys is here, or I have to give them some sort of excuse, take a fake phone call, whatever. Like, I do that. Like, I asked about something. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
and I do feel like there's a certain point in, I mean, now we're kind of getting into all online sales and in a lot of ways online dating. You know, very early on, it's kind of okay they are the same. It's very okay just to kind of disappear after a short conversation. But, you know, if you're somebody who's like, okay, I need you to send videos.
Yes.
Yes.
I've made a point to not message people unless I have the money.
100%.
But see, there's a caveat to that too, because if they don't post the price or they don't post any other information, how am I supposed to just know?
Yeah. But no, what I'm trying to say is, if you got like one of those customers who's like, hey, I need to see a video of this animal moving. I need to see what its parents look
Next
like.
To your driver's license.
Yes, there comes a point, and kind of goes back to online dating too, where like you're not allowed to just ghost anymore. Like you got to be like, hey, look, I'm not interested. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Like that kind of stuff. You know, there's especially with some of those customers who will try to come back like 8 months later, and I'm like, we're not doing this again. You know, I'm not going to send you videos of this other thing because you've already done this to me once.
Yeah, and I think that you're fully within your right to do that. I don't see an issue with that. If someone did that to me, like if this person came back and wanted to buy bears from me, I'd be a little hesitant. Be like, I won't like completely blow them off or anything like that, but I'd still be like
apprehensive.
I'd be apprehensive.
Yeah. So now, just to chime in on all of this, so I'm going to give two parts to this, if I may. So I'm into numismatics, coins, right? Guy posts a coin online, looks great. He puts the price on there because Instagram doesn't care because it's not alive. You can sell whatever you want as long as it's not alive. So I messaged him and I'm like, hey man, I'm really interested in this. What's the catch? Why is this so cheap? And that guy, I was brutally honest, and that guy took the 60 seconds out of his life to send me a video of his hand holding the coin. And he says on there, he goes, hey, Phil, thanks for reaching out. This is the coin. I'm into it really right. And I've got 5 of them. So I figured I'll let somebody else get into it really right. And I was like, dude, that's fantastic. And I didn't message him unless I had the money. I had the money. So I said, dude, thank you so much for the video. I love how you personalized it, saying my name and everything. I'll buy it. You know, here's the PayPal. And we did it. It was great. That's a great interaction between two complete strangers. You know what I mean? Now, that doesn't mean you have to do that for every single snake that you're inquiring about. But again, I wouldn't have inquired about the coin.
Good customer experience.
Exactly. I wouldn't have inquired about the coin if I didn't have the money in the bank account to buy it. Right. And at the same time, I did my homework and I knew what the going rate should have been. So let's say the coin's worth $100 and he wants to sell it for 75. Fantastic. Even if he wanted to sell for 100, I could have said yes or no based on that. But if I know it's supposed to be around $100 and he says, oh, it's 200. Hey man, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Or, hey, that's, I don't even like saying stuff like people are like, oh, that's too expensive. Blah, blah, blah. Like, no, there's no class in that. There's no couth. Right. So I'll just say, hey man, not for me, but I appreciate, you getting back to me. So I went on my Instagram and it was Ivory Exotics. Forgive me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So they posted a Telescopus variegatus, and I've been looking for Telescopus variegatus, but they said it in their little description. They didn't post a picture of the snake. So I wrote, hello, I saw you recently got Telescopus in.
Good day.
I was curious if you knew the locality and what the price was. Thanks. They immediately replied with Telescopus variegatus. We know this from Ghana. Sorry for the terrible pic. I only took a quick one before a little soak. And then they sent a picture of the snake soaking in water, which cool. And I basically reply with very cool. I appreciate the reply. It's not the one I'm looking for. I didn't even ask the price because A, it's not the one I'm looking for. And B, I had already asked once. So clearly they would have given the price if they wanted the price released. And now you're playing that dancing dating game that Casey was talking about. And it's like, obviously if I was like, oh my God, I love it, I'll take it, how much is it, whatever, then that's a whole nother story. But you can't be upset. I can't be upset that they didn't post the price, because that's their way of, dipping their toe in to see how serious I am. And we went up having a nice conversation back and forth, and everything was cordial. But it goes back to seller etiquette and buyer etiquette. You shouldn't, in my opinion, you should not inquire about an animal in any regard unless you're prepared to purchase it. And whether that be, at that time or monetarily or mentally, whatever. And are you prepared for it to not be the conversation you were looking for? Does that make sense?
That's hard though, because especially when you're dealing with a species like that no one's really doing much with, where there isn't, it's kind of hard to get a baseline for what that price probably should be. Like,
I know exactly. Well, here's the thing. It's not the one I wanted, so I didn't inquire about the price. But at the same time, I know exactly what that thing costs because I did my homework. So kudos to them. The animal looks great. Anybody who's looking for a Telescopus variegatus from Ghana, which is a very, very rare locality, they have not been in the country in like a decade, reach out to Ivory Exotics, check them out. Great people, great animals, doing awesome stuff. But again, not to sound cocky, I did my homework, and therefore I took that step to do it. I wasn't just like, wow, I've never heard of that. How much is it? What does it eat? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I do feel like you could. So, going over to Brettles, if somebody did message me like, hey, I don't think I'm interested in a Brettles, can you tell me more about them? I think that'd be a very different conversation. Like, I would be okay if I posted up a Brettles for sale and someone said, can you tell me about these? I don't think I'm interested in them. I've never heard of them before. Can you give me a little bit of your time? Like, I feel like that's different.
I had that happen with Dion's.
Mm-hmm.
When I posted Dion's, people were like, I've never heard of that. What is it? I'm like, they're these awesome little colubrids from like the entire continent of Eurasia. And they're stupid easy to keep, and they're cool. Like, okay, cool. Thanks. You're muted.
Sorry about that. What I would do in Casey's stance is, let's say somebody reached out to me and I was selling Brettles, right? Now, I don't have a website. I just have a Morph Market per se, right? Now, Casey, does Canify Reptiles have a piece on the page about Brettles or no?
So I did that write up for the magazine way back when.
Right.
So
right.
I
okay,
do.
Perfect.
Yeah, I do go back and link that and say, here you go. Here's everything I've ever written about these guys. I've got one or two things that I would change now that I've got a little more experience, but this will get you.
Yeah, and I think you taking the 80 seconds out of your life to write that person back and say, hey, I appreciate you reaching out. That's a lot to talk about in text. I wrote this article a few years back. Here's the website link. Check it out. Let me know if you have any other questions. I appreciate you, reaching out to me. And
I do that pretty often, actually. Like,
and that's the way to do it, man.
I do the same thing with the YouTube videos for chondro stuff, because you get asked a lot of the same questions, and so I just made videos, and it's like,
you're like, look, we can spend 3 hours texting, or I can give you this info dump that's going to tell you everything and more.
And then if you have any more questions, come back.
Yeah, I had a friend who was doing a television thing for science, and they wanted a brief, I'm gonna say, synopsis on king cobras for like literally 15-second, Nat Geo spot thing. They never did it. They never used it. But the guy never thanked me. And I wrote out like a solid 4 or 5 paragraphs. And I was like a little butthurt, to be honest. I was
Thanks
a little butthurt.
For the King Cobra article.
Right. So, and it was very basic. I mean, he could have Googled it and got it, but I mean, those Nat Geo guys are so busy and whatever. But it was just one of those things where we have to gauge the amount of interaction per the initiation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And like Lisa says, what do you feel about payments and deposits? She said, I decided I won't do them anymore unless you are someone I already know and trust.
That's how I do it.
I love payment plans. I'll be the different person here. I absolutely love payment plans. I am very open about it, and I will let people do payment plans for way longer than most other breeders are willing to do it for.
Right. But how many people are you doing that with?
Well, none right now, but like in the past, it was kind of cool where like every week on Friday, like my bank account would start lighting up with, $50 from here, $50 from here, 100. And $200 from here. Like, it was
I would
kind of
do it
sweet.
for
Again, how many-
repeat customers that
I had
bought
one
me
or
2
two
3
people,
times,
though,
like, I never
where-
had an issue doing that. But for the most part, if I don't know you, like if you're just Johnny off the street, like, nah.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. How many of those people were you doing it with, Casey? 4, 5, 10?
Several. I mean, like 12, 15
Okay, see,
at a time. At a time, I really did it with a lot of
more.
people.
Yeah, like I'm not a bookie, man. That's more than I'm willing to. Like, I can't do that. I can't be that guy who
I don't
keeps
want
track
to
Yeah,
of all
and
that.
I get that I'm kind of a different case with that.
Sure.
But then I've only had like 5 or 6 people in the entire time I've done that who, what I usually do is like, you just disappear for a while. I'll reach out like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I will offer a full refund. I know a lot of people don't do that.
I think one of them was me.
One of them was Jeff too.
Wasn't
One of
I
them was
paying you
Jeff
for
from
Reynolds
Cuban
for
Pythons.
like 9 freaking months or something like that?
Yeah, and eventually you just got to be like, hey, here's your money back. It's fine.
It was one of those things. Casey's like, whatever.
Wait, you give their money back?
I do.
See,
yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I know
No,
a lot of
no,
people don't do that, but with my stuff, it's always been like, look, we agreed in the very beginning that you were going to exchange your money for one of my animals, and if something falls apart in any way, I will still refund it. And I know a lot of people don't do that, but that's something I've always. It just seems like the right thing to do for me personally.
I get it. And see, my conscience is clear when I tell them, hey, this is a non-refundable first deposit.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're gonna take 6 months to pay me, which I would personally never do, and the thing croaks because it did whatever, animals, I don't know. That first deposit, that's gone, man. You waited 6 months. You see what I'm saying? And again, that comes back on me and husbandry and whatever
doubles
else.
up on me. Like if I had something die, I absolutely wouldn't do that, because I would put that as something that's my fault.
Right, and don't get me wrong,
And it just turns it into a mess. It just turns it into a whole
and I'm fully aware. I just
first place.
Maybe I'm more willing to take a hit for myself personally on that stuff. I know it's not. It's just for me. That's what seems like right for me.
Okay, so let me put it this way. You're now. See, now we're getting to that whole morals and ethics, right?
And I'm not saying my way is the best way. Like, you are not a bad person if you do a non-refundable deposit. I'm not saying that at all.
I bought an animal flat out, and like Sean was saying, 100% cash in hand, right? And Sean and I think a lot alike in that regard. You know what I mean? I know he doesn't buy an animal unless he's fully invested. I don't buy an animal unless I'm fully ready to rock and roll, right? And I had an animal that lasted a week and it died. And I called the breeder and I was like, hey, man, I don't want my money back. It was in my care. It's a baby. Shit happens. I just want you to know, hey, it died. Just in case other people start calling you or you see stuff with your other animals. And
just a heads up.
Just a heads up. And he was super kind enough to refund my money in full, which I completely appreciate. And I can't say that I wouldn't do the same thing. But when it comes down to someone taking advantage of, I don't want to say taking advantage of kindness because that sounds like a dick move, but like you say, hey man, it's gonna let me pay you in 3 weeks or 2 months. Okay, cool. And now it's 6 to 9 months later, and I've only got the first deposit. Like, come on, man, what are you doing?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I understand people have things happen in their lives. Their car blows up. Their washing machine floods their house. Like, I get that. Communication, transparency. Call me up and say, hey man, it may be 4 or 5 months before I can pay you. Do you mind hanging on to it? No problem, man. And if that guy called me 4 or 5 months later, I was like, dude, life took a turn for the worse. Can I have my money back? No problem. But when I don't hear from you for like 6 months, and dude, you lost your 10% deposit. Like, come on, man. Well,
and that's the thing too, is like in my terms of service on my Morph Market stuff, like it says like I don't do deposits, I don't do payment plans. And so this person that had inquired about some of the corn snakes, they're like, I see you don't do deposits, but if I paid in full, like, can you hold it until I'm ready to ship? And we're waiting on a rack or something, I think is what they were saying. And I was like, that's fine.
Yeah, that's totally different. Totally different. It's a different mindset. And Sean's saying, what if you're waiting on eggs deposit wise?
I would never do that. I would never do that.
No.
I will put you on a wait list. Well, I will reach out to you when things hatch. Well,
I don't do
Look,
official waiting lists. If I have people
I'm not
message
reaching out
me, I
Reptiles. I
remember
don't
who
have
it
a wait
was.
list. You know, I don't have that 3-year wait list. But if there's eggs ready to hatch, I'll be like, look, when things are hatching, I'll reach out to you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to make you like pay money for me to tell you that. But if the animal does not currently exist or is not currently eating in a way that I'm comfortable with, I will never take money for that animal. I just won't. Too many things can go wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
See, that's what happened to me. Someone backed out after months of me holding it. I refunded the money because I agree with you, Casey, but I felt like I got burned because I lost time and money. And yeah, and that's why I don't mess with any of it. You know, like it's just one of those things. It's like it just complicates things more than it really needs to. Like I said, I don't really do waiting lists. People message me about Bairds and stuff, and I usually am pretty good about remembering who's messaged me and letting them know, just saying, hey, I got some available. Or they'll hit me up again a couple months later, you know, and I'll send them to the morph market and be like, this is what I got. And then, you know, whatever they decide to do, you know, cool. But
that being said, though,
try to keep it simple as possible.
I do think I have made a lot more money doing animal stuff because I am gracious with payment plans than I would have if I was somebody who said, okay, you have 2 months to pay off this, you know, over it. It depends, you know, if it's a $200 animal, I don't think I would do a like 4-month payment plan. But if it's something that's like $800, I'm willing to do that. And I feel like I've made a lot more money in the animal stuff by allowing that kind of, you know, linked out payment plan than I would have otherwise. But again, that's just what I'm willing to do because I will still say like 85% of the time that actually works and it works pretty well. And somebody may text every once in a while, say, hey, I can't do this 2 weeks. I'll throw in another $50 the next 2 weeks. And I'm okay with that.
That goes back to the communication, man.
Yeah. But then there are that like 15% of times where you do have somebody just like, hey, I haven't heard from you in 3 months. What's going on here? Like, do you need me to refund your money? And that's happened a few times, but it hasn't happened so many times that it's really like hurt me, you know? And those guys that I've done that for, sometimes they come back. And I feel like they would not have come back at all if I had not done the I'm going to keep your money because screw you.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think that I'm a cold son of a bitch. Like that's not.
And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all.
No, I know you're not saying that. But again, I don't want people to think that I'm just, you know, insensitive to that. It is 100% case by case basis. But like in my work, I have people that'll buy something from the store and not show up for a year. And it's like, no, man, that shit cost me money now. You lost it. I'm sorry. You waited a year to pick it up. Come on. So it's different with animals, but I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, it's business. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you ordered custom cabinets and the guy shows up to deliver them, you're not home, you're gonna pay another delivery fee. You see what I'm getting at? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know,
and I will say too, like
that's where our industries differ, because if someone gets shirts made, we can do nothing with them once they're printed. So we just kind of have to sit with them until they decide to come and get them.
Yeah, but you take
we did that at the print shop
right?
too. We had signs that were in the print shop for like a year, like Phil said, and it's just sitting in the front or it's sitting in the storage.
Yeah, but it was paid.
What do you do with them?
Right, but it was paid in full, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
it's like half paid.
Oh, dude, me personally, I would on something like that, I would never take payment. I would never start making it until payment's in full because of the high probability that I'm going to get stuck with it and not be able to do anything with it.
Well, the weird thing is like sometimes it'll be like a customer that we get on a regular basis. It might be once or twice a quarter, whatever. So it's like we haven't had that issue in the past, but like even recently, there's a restaurant here in town where like they've ordered shirts from us and they just placed another order that's been done and sitting there waiting for them. And I texted the guy and was like, "Hey, your shirts are ready." You know, 4 days later, he texted me back saying, "Oh, I've been sick because of COVID or whatever, and I'll come get them on Friday." And sure, but we've had a handful where it's like we have to call them and email them and call them again and be like, "Please come get your shirts."
Yeah.
And I mean, Justin's right. It's the difference between like a T-shirt or a sign company and a firearm. selling company.
And Ish makes a good point. He says, I'd rather reach out to people who are working with similar projects before a wait list. That's a great idea too. Is like Justin was saying, he knows people that wanted, cyanea, or they wanted bear dye, and he didn't have an actual list, but he's like, oh, you know what? Casey wanted cyanea, Phil wanted a bear dye. Let me reach out to both of them. And if we pass, we pass. And if we buy, we buy,
And those people I'll usually hit up before they go post, they get posted anywhere.
Yeah.
Like they kind of get first dibs on that stuff because they showed interest, initially.
Yeah. And by the way, Ish, you are freaking killing it with Beetlejuice, bro. That snake is incredible. Anybody who hasn't seen that snake needs to go to his page right now.
Earlier, Michael Gillen said he got reamed for asking for prices on animals just so he knows how much he'd have to save for them a couple years ago for blackhead and a diamond. And it's like, I'll bet you're not going to go back and ask, buy from that person now. Like if I had someone get on my case because I asked for a price on something just so I could have an idea of sort of what I'm looking at, I'm not going to be terribly inclined to go and get and deal with them. Yeah. It's like if you were that unpleasant just on a simple question, you're probably not going to be that fun to deal with.
And dude, I've asked simple question and got simple response, and I don't care. Like, there's been a time when someone obviously didn't allude to a price or whatever, and I'll message them, say, hey, just out of morbid curiosity, how much is this Amy eye or whatever? And they just reply with this is literally just a reply, $400. That's it. And you know what my reply is? Thanks. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple, right? I don't have to go overboard. They didn't have to get upset by it, whatever.
So another interesting thing that I want to get your thoughts on, both of you, because you've both been in that realm as well, but your thoughts on wholesaling.
Yeah, I know Lisa was asking about it earlier. I think wholesaling is great when you are unable to, I don't want to say deal with, when you're unable to allocate the time and energy to sell individually. But it's something that you're going to have to acknowledge in terms of taking a percentage loss.
Mm-hmm.
You're losing money for convenience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it.
Yeah. Is Casey frozen?
I think Casey's frozen.
Yeah.
I did it with dart frogs.
Yeah.
With the Vitatus in particular, because that's a species that's pretty commonly bred. They're not very expensive. So me going and trying to post them individually doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I'm probably not going to get too many bites on them. And so it was one of those things I messaged Triple L and was like, hey, you guys are looking for dart frogs. I got all these Vitatus. Gave them a price. They said, sure. I sent them out. I got a check. It was easy. I have zero issues with wholesaling. I sold Billy and Casey both some stuff from this year. Just, they were looking for things to put on the table. And I was like, I got some non-essential personnel.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can find people that you can sort of do that with regularly, I'm all for it. I have no issues. If I don't mind taking a cut on that to sell a group of something, it's like, even though they won't buy my thorn scrubs.
Yeah. It's also very much species specific or even, genus specific, because let's say I've got, baby monocle cobras. I wholesale baby monocle cobras because it's going to cost a lot of time and money because they have to go air freight. They have to go Delta Dash.
Mm-hmm.
So if I sell 2 or I sell 20, I could literally go to Underground and be like, hey man, I was going to sell these for $100 each. I mean, back then that's how much they went for, $100 each online, and have to deal with all the logistics. Or I could sell them to you guys for $50 each. Right. And they're already making daily trips to the airport. They have a shipping department that already has thousands of boxes and cool packs and heat packs and literally teams of individuals designed for logistics. So it's just easier for me because of the venomous stuff to just do that. But at the same time, I've also seen people do it like Smitty was saying with frogs, where indoors is climate control. You know, somebody breeds a bunch of axolotls in December because their house is the optimal conditions. They can't ship those things out. You know, we always hear about all of our friends. Oh, I got to wait a month until the weather gets better. You know what I mean? Opposed to just driving to the wholesaler, providing it's local, or meeting a wholesaler to show, or shipping one big box that's going to maintain temperature and thermal dynamics better, opposed to sending out little box here, little box there, little box here, little box there. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. So I'm all for the wholesaling thing as long as the seller has an understanding as to the pros and cons.
Pawn shop rules, like Pawn Stars. I can't. We're not going to buy this thing for retail price. We're buying it for like 30% retail price.
Well, I don't think that that's necessarily always the case, but you have to be prepared for.
Yeah, 30% might be a little low, but
yeah, realistically, if I'm factoring in whatever you equate the time to be, the time, the maintenance, like the actual like dirt and moss and paper towels and whatever else, and then feeders, you factor those things in, then you figure out what the animal's worth market wise, you put those things together, and then you're taking 40, maybe even 50%, like Lisa was saying. That's cool. You know what I mean? As long as you're still, I don't want to say making money, but as long as you're still a higher percent, you're not losing your butt by wholesaling them, then I say go for it. But that's me. That's personal convenience. You know, I'll tell you right now, there's certain snakes that in my collection that I'm raising up that when the time comes and I do produce, I'm not going to wholesale them because I'm going to be very selective as to who I sell them to. And I want to get full top dollar for them because of all the blood, sweat, and tears I put into it, you know? So, like, honestly, Lisa's white lips, oh my Lanta. If it was me, I would probably not wholesale them. I would probably
absolutely not.
You know, I would not. But that's me, you know, and I would never, like, Lisa, I know you're listening to this. We love you, Lisa. I would never judge her for wholesaling them. You know what I mean? But me personally, that's such a niche animal, such a unique animal. I would try my damnedest to individually sell them. And if I got skunked, well then yeah, maybe I'll wholesale it. Who knows?
I think it's a dual benefit, especially if it's someone, you know, like Clint doing the Metazotics thing. You know, I told him at some points, like, if I have extra stuff, I'll come, like, you'll be one of the first people I come to, because, like, I want to see you guys succeed. I want to help you out. You're helping me out because now I have less to sort of take care of. So you know, same with Casey and Billy. Like, if they're looking for stuff,
yeah,
and I got it, then, like, I'll be hitting them up too. You know, it's just
yeah.
But Mike is also probably
some,
right.
Wholesale porn sites off him, and now they're at Billy's house.
Thorn Scrubs will triple in price, I'm sure, in 3 years.
I also think that when you wholesale stuff, there is something that you have to be mindful of in your mental psyche kind of thing of it, because I've seen it where people produced an animal that, let's say, is worth $100, and they sold it to the wholesaler for $50, and then the wholesaler posts it for $250, and they get really upset. You can't get upset.
Nope.
No,
you can't. And even though you want to, and you're annoyed and you're frustrated and you're kicking yourself in your own shins, you can't get upset. And at the same time, you also can't get upset if you wholesale it and you see that those snakes are, let's say it's corn snakes, they're being sold as feeders. I had a friend who put a lot of energy into a bunch of corn snakes, and all those animals got euthanized and frozen because they were bought as feeders.
See, and that would be something I would need, like, if that's their purpose and someone wants to buy them, like, yeah. if someone buys them and they don't tell me that, and then I find out that they're turned, you know, they're feeders, which I'm not against feeders in that manner.
Sure,
like,
sure.
Whatever, but I would like to know that the animals I'm sending you that's what they're going to be.
Right. And this individual was told, hey, I'm going to use these as feeders. That's why I'm only giving you, you know, $12 a corn snake or whatever it was. And my acquaintance was Oh, all right, yeah, I get it. And I think in his mind, he was thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna feed this corn snake to a baby king cobra." He didn't realize that they were gonna get euthanized and frozen. So,
That
and
is what
that's
it is.
it's
Once
something.
they're in the box and out of your hands, like
Yeah,
no
yeah,
matter what, there's nothing you can do about it at that point.
yeah,
It's like if it's that upsetting, you shouldn't have sold them in the first place.
exactly, exactly. But the more so on the whole thing of the price being not what you expected, or feeling like you got shammed
But
because
that's also the point of wholesaling.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
That's the whole reason that it is what it is. It's like you didn't surely expect them to buy for 50 and sell for 45. Like,
And I mean, I'm considering right now if I can't get somebody, since the breeding season's coming up, if I can't get somebody to take my group of blue tongues and I produce babies, I will not be keeping those babies for more than a couple weeks. I'm not going to try to go through the whole process of every single day opening up 4 cans of dog food and feeding them and cleaning it up. I'm just not going to deal with it. So
Yeah,
I will probably
yeah.
find somebody. I may hit up Tiki's Geckos or somebody like that and say like, look, I'm going to have some high end stuff. Here's the here's the info on them.
we get
Give
some
me
of
a
those
decent
Japanese
price.
cave geckos for them, and we're square.
Which honestly, that might not be a bad thing. Finding somebody say, "Hey, I'll take some snake babies because I don't have to feed snake babies cat food every day."
Yeah, yeah.
It might just be it's for them. It's honestly, I don't think I want to put up with the work that it's going to take to raise up a ton of them. Raising up
Oh, yeah.
1 litter is not bad, but raising up like 3-4 litters, that sounds like a nightmare to me.
And that,
Especially if they don't sell quickly.
When I was first selling crestas and stuff, that was something that I, had to kind of learn to block out was, what if the person that is getting or people that are getting these animals don't take care of them the way that I do? Like,
Yeah.
that was a kind of a tough hurdle, like mental hurdle to get over for a while. Like I wasn't like not selling stuff because of it, but it was one of those things where it's like, I kind of just, you don't think about it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, my phone is about to die. I'm probably going to leave in just a second. I'll try to pop back, but it's also kind of late. Sorry, I'm at 1% right now, and I don't want to cut out without saying goodbye.
No worries.
I'll try to get
man.
back on.
We appreciate you coming on, bro.
All right.
Yeah, it's just something you got to just mentally block out.
Yeah.
And it's, I haven't even, I'm sure, I have no doubt that some of the stuff that I've sent out is probably not around anymore,
Sure.
But it's the same thing. Once that thing's out of your hands, once FedEx has it and it's in, out in the ether, then
yeah,
nothing you can do about it. If that's hard, then selling stuff may not be the best option for you.
I also think that it can be difficult for people to, we're talking about like letting go, right? Like you put all this blood, sweat, and tears into this production, these offspring, right? And you want to make sure they go to the best homes, and you're very selective, and you in your mind you have this, I don't want to say delusions of grandeur, but you have this idea that they're all going to go to a happy home and, a loving, caring rack, and it may not at all. And you can't get mad at that. And you also can't get mad if the person that you sold it to sells it.
Yeah.
And I've had it where I felt bad. I was like, hey man, I'm gonna, it's different when it's a gift. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I can't sell a gift, but I bought stuff off somebody and they're like, hey man, if you ever want to get rid of it, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I call them, I'm like, hey, I want to get rid of it. And they get like upset. And they're like, dude, well, I called you. You wanted me to call you first, and whether they're not in a financial position to buy it back or they don't have the space or whatever. And then they get upset that I'm selling the animal. It doesn't work like that.
I did that with Chris. Like Chris sent me the adult thorn scrubs. I had them. I bred them. I got babies.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Dumas had hit me up about some thorn scrubs. And at that point, that was kind of when I had sort of become disenchanted with them.
Yeah.
And so I messaged Chris and I was like, hey, I can either send these back to you, or I have, one of my buddies is interested in the adults. Do you care if I sell them? And he's like, no, man, go ahead and do whatever you want to do. So when it comes to stuff like that, like I definitely check with the person that gave it to me before I just, send it off. But
yeah.
Patrick brings up a good point. Be like dog breeders and require vetting for every animal you sell. You kind of do that, I think, by default, because if I have someone message me and I just get a message that just says price, what is it?
Yeah.
How do I keep that?
Right.
Like I automatically know that's if it's a green tree python and someone's like, I've never kept snakes, what's that? I want it.
Yeah.
Be like,
yeah.
Sorry, like not happening. But if someone, I think there's ways to sort of vet even on like a subconscious level when it comes to that. Like if someone messages me, they're like, hey, I've been reading about green trees for a couple months now. I'm really interested in having one. I see that you got some for sale. Like, can you tell me anything about the parents? Like, where clearly you can tell they've put in some effort, like a decent amount, into actually learning and reading up on what they're wanting to purchase. And then that's an entirely different thing. But when someone just messages me, they're like, price. I'm like, price is right. Price of gas, price of like oil, like what, I honestly, I don't even respond to those. Like, I'm not usually one to blow people off like that. But if you message me and you can't do it in a full, complete sentence.
Yeah.
Not taking the time.
I also take the time now to vet the dialogue of an international person, because I get international people that message me all the time. Like, I don't sell geckos. Like, they're mine, maybe in the future, who knows? But I get people all the time. They're like, you have Nephris, you sell over ocean. And it's like, clearly you're using Google Translate and it's not working very well. And I'll usually reply with, I do not sell, thank you. Because that translates pretty easily no matter where you are.
Yeah.
And other ones, I'm like, I'm not replying. Block. Because it's just
Okay, plugged in. We should be good. Jason got a really interesting message this weekend from someone from China. And they say, okay, do you ship? And he's like, yeah, if you have an importer and can get the permits, I'll do it. And they're like, oh, well, if you hide in pot, I think you'll be able to do it. Like, literally, like, hey, you need to smuggle these for me.
Yeah.
And we ended up just messing with them for like a solid part of the show and then just blocking them. It was really funny.
I had a guy that I guess by the name, I thought it was Eastern European, and spoke perfect English, wrote in perfect English. And he's like, hey, man, I know that you work with a lot of wholesalers. I'm really interested in some tarantulas. Could you steer me in the right direction? Or maybe if I give you a list, I'll pay you to go shopping for me. Be like my personal tarantula shopper. And I was like, oh, that's, we could probably work something out, And I was like, where are you located? He goes, I'm in Alice Springs. And I said, Australia? And he says, yeah, I'm in Australia. I said, you can't have that. I can't ship you that.
I'm not sending you Salmopius.
He says, yeah, man. He says, I just got Grammastola from a guy in Poland. They just ship it. And I'm like, and you got the box? He goes, yeah, they just don't put anything on the box and it gets here. He's like, it takes a little long, but they're bugs. Who cares? I was like, I'm sorry, but we can't have this conversation anymore. We're done here.
Prank caller.
Yeah, legit. He's like, yeah, I got, polkies, and I got Brazilian blacks, and I got ornamentals and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's great. He goes, yeah, I get from 2 different guys in Poland, and they just ship them. He's like, it costs a little bit. It's like $100. Like,
go talk
First
to them.
of all, sir, you should not have a written record of this like you just sent me.
Yeah, exactly.
You should not have a you should not have a written record online of this at all.
Right. And that's why I said, I was like, we can't have this conversation where we're done here. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. See that, FWC and Florida Department of Agriculture? I did not ship tarantulas to the land down under.
No. I had a customer do that. One of the first times I tried to sell ball pythons, The guy was being broken English. I usually don't reply to messages where it's just like, what your lowest price? But for some weird reason, this guy I did reply to and like kind of played ball with him. He sent me the money.
He's Gen Z.
Yeah, I just assume he's Gen Z. Like I usually just ignore stuff like that completely. But
wait,
he
coming
sends
from
me
the guy that spent the whole weekend at Daytona saying everything was bussin'.
I never used that word.
No,
Casey
I did. Danielle was saying that word, and then I started saying it ironically, and I started.
The entire weekend, I was like, "Shut the fuck up, Casey."
It's a great word. I thought it was hilarious. Danielle will agree with me. It's a great word.
Danielle,
but anyway, yeah, no, the guy's like being a little weird about the stuff, but he sends me the money real quick, and he's like, "Okay, I need you to send it to this address in San Diego." And it is a car lot, like an enterprise rental car lot on the U.S.-Mexico border, like right on the border. And I'm like, you're not going to try to drive these across the border to Mexico when you get them, are there? And he's like, oh yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm doing because I need you to, I need them to be here at this day, at this time. I cannot do it any other time other than this. Like they had to be delivered on this Saturday. So I'm like, oh, you're trying to smuggle these into Mexico? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, here's your money back, sir. I want no part of this.
Wow.
Which, I mean, he's probably gotten away with it several times, but...
It's hilarious how...
I want no part of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like walking up to a stranger and be like, hey, I got a body in my trunk. You want to see it?
Yeah, I mean...
Look, what? You don't know
But it was literally like a rental car lot right on the border. Like, the border was, like, not even half a mile away.
Wow.
See, if he had sent it to a Chili's, no one would have questioned it.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a line cook that ordered a snake, and he's at work, so he can't pick it up.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been like, absolutely. I'll send you a free bear just because we're going to a Chili's.
Wow. Oh, God. People, man. People are amazing. They really are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick brought up a good point. Undercover people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like sometimes you see ads on Fauna for stuff that you never see for sale on Fauna from countries that you never see stuff for sale from, and you're like,
yeah,
this is a trap.
Yeah,
but I guarantee you, they probably have people messaging me like, hey man, what's up with those wild caught basins? What's up? What's going on with those?
Well, I know for a fact that my Fish and Wildlife is infamous for having an undercover go into a pet shop to sell contraband or barter contraband, and the animals are microchipped. And then they do it, and then they come in, and this is obviously pet shops that aren't around anymore. And while they're in the pet shop, they find more violations. And it's just like, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it.
Snakes
going to Chili's. Yeah. Okay, so what's that? It was I want to say it was in the Lizard King. They were talking about how there was a stupid sting with some Asian buyers going to Mexico, and they were saying that they were selling them a gorilla, and it was an FWC officer in a gorilla suit pretending to be a gorilla. And that was one of the most famous busts was an FWC officer in a gorilla suit trying to become a smuggled gorilla for wildlife smugglers.
I see. That's one of those instances where it's like you wish you were there just to see the look on their face when he took the mask off.
Yeah,
yeah, sure. And he just takes it off. You're under arrest, sir.
Oh my God. Well, like one of the famous ones by me is an individual had opened up a brand new pet shop and had all the licenses to do everything, venomous, selling, all that stuff. And a father and son come in the pet shop with a coral snake in a bucket. And I forgive me if I've told the story on here before. And they're like, hey man, we found this snake. Is this a coral snake? And the guy's like, yeah, it's a coral. The owner of the shop is like, yeah, it's a coral snake. You can't possess it. I have a license. I have to take it from you. But you know what? Well, can we sell it to you? No, you can't sell it because you don't have a license to sell. But how about this? If you buy a setup for a milk snake, I'll give you a milk snake because you bought the setup. He's like, oh, so we're trading the coral snake for the milk snake? He goes, I mean, if you want to think of it like that. And right there, that was the barter. So the next day, FWC goes in the shop in uniform with a microchip scanner, and they say, "Hey man, where's the coral snake?" And the guy's like, "You got me. Here it is," and pulls out a deli cup, and they wand the friggin' snake, and it's the wrong snake. It's a different coral snake. Then come to find out that all of his licenses were photoshopped. He had no licenses registered with the state. And while they're in there, the one cop is walking around the store. He had alligator snapping turtles for sale in a tank, which is a no-no in Florida. And the piece de resistance, the cherry on top, if you will, is after they gave him his notice to appear in court, those same detectives came back and physically arrested him because he was shipping gopher tortoises to Texas to an undercover Texas DNR person. Yeah. So,
damn,
that's the trifecta right there. Just people, man.
So that was
Yeah.
that pee-pee slap was hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How has the ball python selling been going there, Casey? You just hatched
Went
some.
pretty well. I did just hatch some. I hatched a puzzle ball python clutch. That was pretty cool.
You put them
So-
together yet? Figure out what the picture is.
Oh no, I haven't even tried to feed them yet. Like they just hatched out. They're I put them up into a big container with some wet newspaper or some wet paper towel, and just put them back in the incubator so that they could have their first shed, and then I'll take them out and I'll separate them and start trying to feed them. So yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I sold a mid-range clown female at the show, and then I sold a pied female that me and Billy had gone in together with. So me and Billy got to figure out the money stuff on that coming up. But no, it's been pretty good. I haven't fully taken pictures of everything that's coming from Canada yet to put up. I'll probably do that tomorrow, and really just fully get the Morph Market stuff up and running. But no, it's good. It's good.
I just did that yesterday. I went through and posted some beards and thorn scrubs and corns, took all the pictures, uploaded them. I was like, this is tedious.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I've been putting it off. I'm like, okay, I'm going to wake up early tomorrow morning, get this thing up before I got to really start doing stuff. And then I just don't. And I need to because, well, I've got too many snakes, and it costs a lot of money to feed snakes, so they need to start going up for sale.
Yeah, and that's sort of with the beards especially. It was like, I really don't want to sell any of these, but I also don't need 8 Loma Altas.
And I'm that way with a couple projects where
And
I've got some really nice looking hatchling Brettles that I'm like, I'd really like to keep these, but why do I need 3 more female Brettles at this point? Why? So yeah, I got a couple things like that I'm going to need to kind of slim down a little bit. We have tried Sam and Nelson before. We've got a new guy that we're trying right now that I need to go figure out what his name is. Lance will help with the blue tongues? Okay. I mean, I feel like I've got a solid chance of getting 3 or 4 northern litters this year. I have female easterns, but I don't want to jinx myself with the blue tongues, and then I really don't want to jinx myself with the westerns. That would be getting baby westerns would be incredible, but getting baby blue tongues at all would be incredible. But I don't want what?
Yeah, you start knock on that wood behind.
Knock on that wood behind you, boy.
Yeah. But
overall,
I mean, the idea of getting 3 litters of northern blue tongue skinks would be amazing. But I'm also I don't want to hold on to them and feed them cat food every day. That's just so. I would love to find somebody to wholesale those off to. I'll do it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to not take care of them. It's just, yeah. If I could find somebody willing to buy them wholesale, I would probably do it. Just keep what I wanted to.
So Elijah Day has some of those balls that he had for sale at Daytona, and I get very tempted.
You really like the freeway stuff, don't you?
I
like
don't.
the
I like
freeways.
those ones. I don't. So me and him were talking back and forth like last week because I was like, "What exactly is it?" And he showed me, and then I asked. He had like some bamboo stuff. I was like, "Those are pretty cool too." And I don't know. I don't need another thing, but at the same time, it's like as much as we don't really trash ball pythons here, but we do, poke a few jabs at their expense.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy.
It's a low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And so it's like if I'm going to do that, I should probably breed them so I can at least have some context or perspective to be able to truly say one way or the other whether I think they're,
And I've said this before. Here's where I'm at with the ball python thing. You're a snake guy. You're allowed to like snakes. I don't like the mentality of, the ball pythons, they're trash animal and I hate them because they're popular. If you're a snake guy and you're like, okay, I don't like most ball pythons, but I do like the ultramels and I like the freeways or whatever it is. You're a snake guy. You're allowed to like snakes, And if you really are just like, look, I don't like ball pythons at all, then cool, don't.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up Eli because he's got I don't want to say a surplus, but he's got a surplus Longicuda that I'm probably going to want to. I'm going to try to get it off him. I don't like boas. Like I've had a lot of epicrates. I really love rainbows, but at this point in the game, it's really not for me. But there's just something about longtails that I like, and I kind of want to get that one off him to kind of see if it's something I want to pursue. But I still don't like boas. Like it's just not my thing, man. So it's just they're not as easy to make fun of as ball pythons.
I tried to get him to take 5 thorn scrubs for a pair of balls, and he wouldn't do it.
I can't blame him.
One of them's aberrant, man.
I'm sure it is.
Aberrant.
And here's where I'm at with the ball python thing too. And this is after failing on a lot of my. I've got some stuff in my room that's hard to breed, and then I've got some stuff in my room that's mid range to breed. And
the GHI.
I mean, I failed on a lot of it. So and I've decided this too, if you're going to have a lot of harder to breed species and a lot of mid-range to breed species, you need a few easy things in the room just so that that you're not, that you can feel competent on a bad year. I feel like that happens with a lot of the scrub guys where if you get a room full of scrub pythons and you get one clutch 1 year and then you go like 2 years without them, you see a lot of those guys get out really fast just because those are really high maintenance animals and they're kind of scary to work with. And 2, it's like you can get really disheartened really fast if you go 2-3 years in a row without getting the success you think you deserve for the amount of work you put into them.
Yeah.
So having a couple, if you're going to specialize in like mid-range, harder species, I think you would do yourself a service if you have 1 or 2, knock them out of the park without even trying species, just to know that you're competent when you do inevitably fail.
Yeah, but I also, Justin was saying for sanity's sake. Yeah.
Yes, for sanity's sake, 100%.
Yeah. But I also think it comes down to what your goals are with the animals that you are working with. For example, I just got all these stilettos. I really am fascinated with the species. I want to learn as much as I can about the 4 that I have. And, talking to Nate, I really would like to try and breed them, but I can't think like that. I need to think on establishing them, getting them eating on their own.
The foundation.
Yeah, get the foundation going. You know what I mean? The framework of it. And then once I've had them for X amount of time under my belt and I'm really, I still feel the same way about them, then I need to think about, okay, do I really want to breed them? Do I want to try? How am I going to document this? Because I want to do this right. And then at the same time, let's say I produce, let's say I go the gauntlet, I do the full Monty, right? I have to just give those snakes to Nate because no one's going to want them, let alone pay for them. You see what I'm saying? So that's purely a project out of passion.
They're the
There is
thorn
no
scrubs of the
honestly, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm gonna do it because I really want to, for me, not because it's gonna help pay my rat bill for the year. Like it's not that's not gonna happen. So it just I think it comes down to what your goals are and what your goals may evolve into per that species.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying though, if you I don't know, let's say you have a room full of Timor pythons and Moluccan scrub pythons, right?
Yeah.
Species that are very difficult to successfully breed. And you try 3 years in a row.
You might get Malucky.
Yeah, you might get Malucky. That's so stupid, but I love it. But no, like if you do go year in, year out, and you're like, she built follicles and she stopped. So you keep going through that roller coaster of, oh, I'm gonna do this and I'm not. Oh, I'm gonna do this and I'm. Sanity's sake, there's not a lot of people who can actually do that year in, year out.
Like the people that are investing the time and money in Moluccans and Lesser Sundas, that's passion.
You're right.
And that's
it
passion
absolutely is. I'm just saying, if you're one of those people, I feel like you should have 1 or 2 projects that are, I can do this with my eyes closed, just so you can know, like, I am a competent reptile breeder. These are just hard.
Why do you think I gave up on chondros and switched to
you didn't give up on chondros. You just took a step back, and while you're waiting for things to grow, you have your other side hustle.
My broken wings heal.
Oh my God. Relax, Icarus. I'm trying to figure out what's up, Scott. I'm trying to figure out what Scott was saying. If you bag out of a group of snakes, you're sad. People need to grow up. I don't understand what he means by that. I think that if you produce, great, awesome, morale booster, huge morale booster. If you don't produce, but the species is incredibly difficult and very niche and very demanding, you took on that project knowing that, or you should have taken that project on knowing that. And I feel like there are certain individuals out there who are very selective in what they keep, and those species are so difficult and so niche and whatever. It's almost I can't, how do I phrase this? I have no sympathy when you get pouty because you knew what you're getting into. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I agree with. I'm not saying that's not true at all. It's just I think if you're going to be one of those people who only works with the hard to breed rare species, you need to have a couple things in there just so you can kind of have like a litmus test of, okay, I'm not bad. This is just, these are just hard. Yeah. I've still got this. I've still got this. I've got the skills, because especially with these hard to breed species, you're going to have a lot more just drop dead than you're ever going to have drop eggs.
Well, and that's
really disheartening. For most people, there's a few people that can put up with it.
Well, that's the Rob Stone millipede theory. Where Smitty and I are in West Texas with the NPR boys, and we're getting skunked left and right. Haven't seen a snake in hours. And Rob looks at us and goes, we keep seeing these little millipedes on the side of the road, and we see them.
They're cool.
So
as hell.
we know it's not us. We know that we're not missing the snakes. They're just not there. And I feel like it's the same kind of thing with, you saying you want to have the side project or the supplemental project is I bred balls or I bred carpets or whatever because I'm not being so successful with the Lesser Sundas or whatever.
Or whatever.
I think it's the same. It's the same concept. Yeah. You
and I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but it's
you just need that little validation that it's not just
you need the validation. Yeah. I feel like everyone, there may be a few people that don't, but there's a lot more people that do than there are that don't.
I think it's also not that the harder stuff isn't as enjoyable, but it's like you said before, and like I've said before, like there's something to be said for something that's just like stress-free, just easy, enjoy. Like you get to sit back and enjoy it. You don't have to worry about your incubator being 2 degrees off. You don't have to worry about your female eating your male. You just like that's why I love the corns. Like the beauty is in the simplicity. Same with the Bairds. and the any other rat snake stuff minus the Jansenine. That's a completely different story. I just there's a very like wholesomeness or like purity to it of just simple.
Yeah, because I mean something like chondros, it's a roller coaster, and you're gonna have that little she's building follicles, they're locking, and nothing happened, or oh my god, that happened and she died, or something like that.
Pulling your hair out, yeah.
You know,
I think you have to balance the two. You know, you gotta have the good and the easy
and then
and the
when you get
hard.
success, it's amazing. It's just going year in year out saying, and she's building follicles, and the male died. Now what? You know, that's very, very disheartening. And sometimes it's just because those species they're hard. You know, and you say, okay, but I got 3 clutches of corn snakes and a half fertile clutch of chondros. Maybe it's just the fact that the chondros, you don't have them nailed down yet, but you're still a good reptile keeper, you know?
Yeah, and I've never really questioned, my abilities, where if something didn't happen, I'm like, maybe it's me. Like, it's just one of those things where it just didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely had stride. Those moments. Where I'm like, things roll. It happens. It's part of the hobby. You're in it long enough, you're gonna lose things. Things aren't gonna go the way you expected them to. But you just take it in stride, and it's like, hey, we'll get them next year. And it's like losing the Super Bowl.
Well, it's so many unforeseen variables. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea if that baby had a heart murmur, or if that baby was born with enlarged organs or whatever. Like, we just don't know. So.
That's actually something that either Chris or Doc brought up on the last Corner Stars episode, was like, we have these genes and stuff, and everything outwardly seems completely normal, but we have no idea if these things are half blind because of this morph, and we may never know, because outwardly it looks like a completely normal, completely healthy animal.
Yeah. And like we were talking about earlier, the money isn't there to back the science the way it is in other avenues. You know? So
could change.
What's that?
I said it could change.
It is. I think it is changing. I think it is dynamically evolving, especially since science is finally really looking at reptiles and amphibians for a gauntlet of other things, whether it be, stem cell or venoms or proteins and peptides and whatever.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we are at the witching hour, sir. Is there anything else you want to cover?
Nope. Just getting ready for the great cool down.
Well, I believe it. I already started feathering my my temperatures, and I have a bunch of heat emitters that are not on timers. So kind of like what Smitty does, where it forces him to go in the room and turn stuff off, and forces him to go in there and play around. I started doing that, and just to kind of slowly start to bring temps to a little cooler. And yeah, man, I got to figure out what I'm gonna do with the wrinkles, because they're getting paired this season. So
the rinky dinks.
I
hope you get them. I really hope you get those.
Thanks, man. I noticed
I'll never get a baby, but I hope you get them.
Yeah, man. Honestly, it depends on what's going on, but I'm probably just gonna hold back everything. So, but my one girl that is big, she's the biggest one I have. Last year, she definitely went into a seasonal color change and just got drab and dark and muddled ugly. And I just started to see her she shed and was darker. And I was like, here it comes. So, yep.
Are they traditionally hard to breed? Do you know? Are there anybody really even trying those?
Yeah, there's people that do it successfully. It's very few and far between. It's another personal goal of mine for a multitude of reasons that we can talk about off air. And but yeah, I'm hopeful. So
yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like the wrinkles are a very seasonal animal. Am I wrong for thinking that?
Oh yeah,
their environment's very seasonal. Yeah.
Extremely. Yeah. And they're so
It
widely
seems like
distributed.
animals that are more seasonal are easier to breed than the like true tropical, like
Yeah.
we don't fully understand because they may have a day-night cycle, but it's like 20 minutes different.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
it might just rain 30 minutes shorter this time of year than this time of year.
Yeah, it's
Right.
easier to do larger, more drastic swings and things like that than it is with something that's a much more narrow scope of, seasonality.
Yeah. And I think that I very much compare the Rincals to
Hog
Pitiophis.
noses.
No, realistically to Pitiophis, because you have Pitiophis in, the northeast of the United States where it gets real cold and they go into a full brumation. And then you got Pitiophis in southern Florida where they just live all year round.
They had to go for tortoise burrow when it gets a little bit chilly and then come out.
Yeah, exactly. Like they get some frost, they'll be in a gopher tortoise burrow, they're good to go. And the rinks do the same thing. And you've got rinks that are from, extreme western part of the East Cape where it really doesn't get that cold. And then you got rinks basking in snow in KwaZulu-Natal, 200 miles west of Durban. So the phenotypes that I have, I'm 90% sure that I've got 3 or 4. No, I would say the majority of them are KwaZulu-Natal, and I have 2 that I think are from East Cape, and you can tell just the coloration is just completely different. And I really want to see how that's going to pan out in terms of the seasonal color change as some of the ones I have get older. I've got a lot of like yearling or 2-year-old stuff, so we'll see how long it takes them to really get that seasonal color variation.
Timothy Friesen said, how do y'all feel about breeders wanting to be paid in full before the snakes have shed and are feeding?
Absolutely not. If it is not successfully feeding, I will not take any money. There's entirely too much that can go wrong. There's entirely too much chance of bad blood with something like that. It's absolutely not.
Yeah.
Agreed. It's the same thing with sort of doing like pre-selling stuff before it even hatches. It's like, it's literally putting eggs in one basket and hoping for the best. It's like
hearing about some of the like locality retic breeders who are like, I've got a 3-year-long wait list. I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's entirely too much that can go wrong, and you can make an enemy versus, an acquaintance real quick.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's just my whole thing with it all, is just making it all, keeping the margin for things to go south as narrow as possible.
Yeah.
I just keep it simple. That's post it. Someone buys it. Great. Don't have to worry about hunting them down for money. None of that. Just, it's a sweet Heliderm hat there, Phil.
Thank you very much. I'm
going to try to come down to Florida maybe late this month or early next month. So I will let you know which day that is.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. I'm always around.
Mm-hmm.
Pick me up on your way down.
Do it.
It's a little out of my way, but I can do it. There's a way I can take that goes by Savannah. Well, it depends. There is actually a way I can go that basically takes me right to Savannah, and then I just follow the coast the whole way down. It all just depends. I probably could, actually.
I'll be on the side of the road.
And it's only like it's about 12 minutes. It's about 12 miles longer, and 6 or 7 minutes more. And the GPS, it depends on what the traffic's doing that day, which way it tells me to go.
And I can say with full confidence that Justin's Island is very quaint and adorable.
It is. I went there once. Did it get messed up by the hurricane? I was going to ask you about that because it hit South Carolina, right?
It hit like Myrtle Beach, which no one's upset about because it's Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, right. Oh, geez.
We got a lot. It was like super windy, and then we got some pretty standard rain. So it was really nothing. Everyone was messaging me like, "Are you guys okay?" And it's like we didn't get anything. Like we just got windy. Some pine cones fell. Some leaves are on the ground.
Yeah. We will rebuild.
Katie had to take her hammock down. The trampoline didn't fly away. That's like the true litmus test. Like if the trampoline flies away, it was bad. But if that trampoline didn't move, you're good.
That's why southern backyards have trampolines in the first place.
That's how we know.
I need to reach out to the Sanibel Captiva Nature Society because all those barrier islands got destroyed. And I know that they were studying a bunch of animals on those islands that are endemic to those barrier islands. And I mean, life finds a way, man. Nature was here before we had, resorts and hotels, but they got whacked real good. So I'm definitely going to reach out and see if how they're doing and go from there. So, and Gillen, I don't know that person, so
I know the name.
It sounds familiar. Hit me up off here, and we'll make friends. So.
There's a retic breeder who has stipulations on what you can do with snakes you purchase from him. That's a big pass for me too.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
I mean, okay, well, no, I was gonna say like, well, if I found out I was selling somebody a Brettles that was going to be a feeder, I probably wouldn't do it. But like, that's about the line for me. If I found out they were going to be keeping it,
bred it to a ball python, created a whole new type of AIDS.
Bread balls.
Bread balls.
I don't know. I mean, if it's like, hey, I'm going to go see if I can let them go in South Texas and see if I can get a little ranch population like the chameleon guys do. I mean, my morbid curiosity would want to know about that, but I still wouldn't do it. Like, first of all, I'm very interested in that project. I want no part of it personally, but update me on it.
Yeah. I still want to see a Ruffy green tree cross, damn it. There has to be photo evidence that they
battle chondro
want it.
The battle chondro will happen. So
I do think it would be kind of cool, and this is complete sacrilege because of how rare they are. It would be kind of cool to get one of the dwarf berms, get a dwarf berm male, and like a mixed locality super dwarf retic female, and try to go for like tiny bat eaters. I do think that would be really cool. But I think it is only acceptable if you use a male. If you own a pair of pronger shai and use the male on a female retic, you cannot waste a female.
Itty bitty bat eater.
Is that's not pronger shai, is it?
The Brongerschmai is bloods.
Okay, yeah. What's the dwarf berms? The dwarf berm starts with the P too.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I think it's because it's not pronger shai. That's wrong.
You do a Jampea male to a Sri Lankan python female.
See, I feel like you're asking for trouble with doing something like that because its organs are going to be messed up. Like it's going to have the short tail python intestines and like the retic's heart, and it's just not going to.
No, Sri Lankan, not short tail, Sri Lankan.
Oh yeah, I'm an idiot. Sorry, it's getting late.
Breeding hybrids, anyways. What difference does it make? Something's going to be wrong with it.
There is, but like I also feel like when somebody was trying to do a green tree python, short tail python cross, like I feel like then you're just asking for like incompatible like skeletal structures and organs. Like genetically it can happen, but like physiologically you're getting like green tree python heart rate on like a blood python's fat content, and you're getting like I don't know, you're mixing the kidneys and the spinal. Yeah. It's just a disaster. Like that animal's not gonna have a good life.
On that note,
don't do that, people. It's bad.
On that note,
like a bulldog and a greyhound.
Yeah, right. Like a.
Oh God.
Prague shy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say, but I think I mixed it up with the.
Wait, so is Prague shy is the Sri Lankan?
Yeah, python.
Oh, okay.
Vivitatus, pogs.
Slammers.
Okay.
Slammers and pogs.
Did you have pogs as a kid?
Of course.
I did. I never knew what to do with them. I just had them.
No one did. Dude, you know how many slammers I had? It was like, is it made of lucite with something inside it? I'll buy it. I'm a child. Snakes and Stogies, episode 138.
Bring back Beyblades.
Those were pretty cool.
Dude, I had a whole tackle box. I had the little arena. Me and the neighborhood kids would be huddled up on the corner like we were rolling dice, but we were while we were playing with.
Let's close the show out and we'll talk about this off air because
All right. This episode was brought to you by BlackBox Cages. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram, blackboxcages.com. Billy Jenkins has some Beyblades. He knows what's up. He said, pull up. And I had the manual puller thing, not that crap, like automatic one with the battery. I was a real man. That's why my biceps are so huge. Roommate's going off about Beyblades right now. Yeah. Because they're awesome. Blackboxcages.com. Completely lost my train of thought. Puget Sound Pythons. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram. We'll be back on Thursday for THP. And we have more Corn Stars in the works. We have a ConjureCast episode in the works. And that is all.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah. I was very scatterbrained. I didn't get a lot of sleep, so I appreciate you guys letting me come on and ramble a little bit.
We appreciate the Tinley recap.
That's right. It was a good episode.
It
Good
was.
show.
Great
Yeah,
show.
I had a good time. I had a really good time with this one.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks all.
Bye.